before we get started on Chapter 7 of Fire Officer 4, which is what we're transitioning into now, are there any questions over 1 through 6 that I can find somebody to answer for you? Or any questions over your paper or anything like that? Next week, we're scheduled for Wednesday. Most likely, it will be virtual. But it still could be in person. I'll let you know for sure, because it's a city holiday. I didn't even realize that. But
What is?
Next Wednesday, it's a city holiday.
What?
Veterans Day. The 11th, yeah. Right in the middle of the week. So, we're not changing the schedule. It'll either be in person or it'll be virtual, but I'll let you know for sure by the end of the week, because I don't know who we need to see. Bishop's on.
No, we come off that morning.
So it's a BC transition, so you'll be here, right?
I'll be a little bit anyway.
Oh, you're on vacation that week, okay. So,
I won't be here for that, even though I'm getting off.
okay.
I'll be here.
So, you drive in, you drive. So, TJ should be back. So, most likely we'll do it virtual. But I'll let everybody know for sure. All right, so Chapter 7, Human Resource Management. What's the word? Hey, buddy.
What's up?
Not much.
All with little learners.
You're not going to stand in line, are you? It's already, when I came in, got here a little before 7, it was already through the parking lot, down the sidewalk, down by the water treatment plant.
Are you serious?
Has a heart attack and didn't even open until 7.
Say I'm checking those occupancy load. Oh, look, open food, sure, check
I need to check temperatures as we go. Biden, no, you got a tip, you can't go vote.
Yeah.
Oh.
What are you voting for?
Why is this not working? I'm telling you, Linda wants to work on it. The batteries? Now the keyboard's not even wanting to click forward.
It's already starting.
Y2K, right?
Classroom
Yeah.
won't be available for a week now.
2x2, 2K.
There we go. Just had to wake it up. All right, so first objective we're going to discuss is explain the importance of diversity and inclusiveness, in a fire and emergency services organization. So, fire and emergency service organizations strive for a diverse and inclusive workforce. Chief officers are responsible for commitment to diversity and inclusive at all levels in a way that is explicitly communicated, demonstrated, supported, and sustained. I mean, it's our job to make sure that we are communicating what's coming down. We make sure we're communicating things across the board in the best approach possible, without throwing our own opinion, without putting our own twist or anything of that nature. Anything that comes from HR, anything that comes from the city manager on down, we've got to make sure that we communicate it that is equal across the board to everybody. But not only just communicating, we've got to make sure that we walk the walk along with talking the talk. We can't just say one thing and do something completely different, or we can't just say, hey, this is what we're putting in place, and we're going to let Carl do this, but we're not going to let Paul do something different. We can't make sure we do that. We've got to demonstrate it as well. We've got to support it, and when it comes to supporting it, there's a lot of laws that are out there that we have to make sure we abide by. Whether we agree or disagree, we've got to take the ownership of it. We've got to make sure it's followed through completely. We can have our own different personal opinions about different things, but we can't let our personal opinions get involved or get in the way of decision making. And then we've got to sustain it. We've got to make sure we're consistent across the board. Diversity occurs through recruitment and hiring. Attributes that can be differentiated groups and people. It's an evolving process that contributes to improved service and delivery. So, a lot of it really all starts with the recruitment process and with the hiring process. Looking at our community, looking at our department, looking at the different groups that we have out there. I mean, we meet the elderly group, being diverse. We hired Mark. That's probably what the politically correct statement.
So should I not keep leaving the recommended retirement statement?
Right. But we just got to look at everything overall when it comes to recruiting and hiring. You know, as far as all members of the department, when it comes to inclusiveness, we've got to make sure that we're treating everybody is treated fairly. They have access to opportunities and resources across the board. Can contribute to the organization's success. Encouraged to be involved. Make sure everybody, you know, feels empowered and valued, you know, and their opinion counts, at least is heard, and experiences a sense of belonging. You know, it goes back to having that ownership. You know, this is not just my department, Paul's department, Carl's department, this is our department. And everybody has a voice, and everybody has an opinion. And whether we follow through with that voice or opinion, you know, everybody's still heard it. At least listen to what you have to say to actually try to hear it out and see exactly, you know, if it's the direction we need to go or what we need to modify, if any at all. But it's a sense of belonging to the department because you are part of it. From Alton, who's got 42 years of service, to Brandon, who's got 4 months with the department. Everybody has a voice. When it comes to inclusive organization, it promotes and sustains sense of belonging, but it also brings value and practices, respect members, beliefs, backgrounds, and ways of living. You know, Alton and even Albert and Dickinson can definitely tell you how this department was, obviously, you know, 42 years ago, almost 30 years ago with Albert and them, and where it is today. And there's things that the fire service did. I mean, Paul knows, Phil knows, Davis knows. Things that we did in the fire service 20 years ago that we'd never be able to get away with today. Never be able to get away with today.
Yeah,
But it's
some of the crap that went on was unbelievable.
and without a doubt, And you know, Paul's got you've got 20, right? Or almost 20.
Yeah.
This year you got 20. Davis has got collectively 20, correct? Between the two? 21. You've got over 20.
I've got 22 here plus my previous time.
So the tenure within the department and the tenure in the fire service brings that respect, brings that experience, and helps us truly grow and develop to where we are today. You know, we've learned from our past experiences, right or wrong. We've learned what, you know, the days of how we treat a rookie today is completely different than how we treated a rookie 5 years ago. And literally just that short period of time. I mean, the hazing that used to take place, the cinnamon challenge, the dragon challenge, whatever, the cinnamon dragon challenge that you can do or whatnot, is frowned upon nowadays. But, you know, it's how we can sit down and how we can learn and how we can grow as individuals. You know, the stories that Carl will be able to tell when he retires, you know, could be very similar to the stories that David could tell, but there'll be some different variations and different differences as well, because you've been part of the fire service a little bit longer than Carl has, but you've experienced the things that Carl may not have. And then, you know, coming from the Dallas area, you might have experienced the things that we never experienced here as well. So that's what kind of makes the fire service what it is. You know, that's how, you know, the respect, the practices, the beliefs that we have, the backgrounds, and obviously the ways of living. You know, when it comes to diversity, you know, this picture on the left represents the full spectrum of human demographic differences. Doesn't matter the color, black, white, yellow, green, blue, or whatever. That's the diversity. That's what, you know, people look at diversity in the department, they want to look to see, you know, what different races we have and things of that nature. But it's taking that diversity and then, based upon the culture, the environment, a feeling of belonging, bringing that puzzle together, making it one. You know, that's where you get your inclusion from. You know, you've got to make sure that, you know, through our hiring process, yeah, we want to try to be as diverse as we possibly can, but at the same time, we don't want to hire somebody because of a race or whatnot, and then when it comes to trying to bring them into the culture, they don't fit the culture. They don't fit our department. They don't fit, you know, the direction we're going, providing we're going on the right path. And then you've got that missing component overall. You've got to look at everything as a whole.
It's easy to hire diversity, it's hard on the inclusion part.
Yes.
That's
Without a
the
doubt.
part that we struggle with.
Because, I mean, it's hard to really tell what somebody is or who they really are in 2 or 3 areas. You know, they may look good for 6 months, but then that 6 months and 1 day hits, and they become a complete different
And when they get on shift, if they don't open up, if they're not willing to talk, if they're not willing to share ideas, you may think you're going down the right road, but
Right. So diversity, equal opportunity, and affirmative action. Confusion about the differences between diversity, equal opportunity, and affirmative action lead to organizational barriers to inclusion. So Civil Rights Act of 1964, also known as Title VII. I would make sure you probably know this for the state test. This prohibits employment discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And this has led to the establishment of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, EEOC, and affirmative action programs. And the thing is, and I'll tell you, like the EEOC, we'll talk more a little bit on that. You know, but people get scared about when they hear the word, you know, acronym EEOC. You know, but their job is to make sure that employers are treating their employees fairly across the board. They're not being discriminated against. Basically, everything that the Title VII falls under, they overlook that. But you know, if you're having issues with employees across the board, or you're having issues with a certain employer, or whatever, as long as you document everything and you're treating them equally in the same way, there's nothing that the EEOC will do to overturn that unless they see that they're being treated unfairly or because of race, age, sex, gender, religion, anything of that nature. EEOC enforces the laws that require employers to evaluate all job applicants fairly without discrimination. They are initiated by the government. Sometimes it's mandatory involvement, but the EEO, everyone should have same access to workplace opportunities. So discrimination categories, which we talked about already, is the race, ethnicity, sex, age, religion, and physical disability. Under affirmative action stems from the EEO laws, rules, and regulations, the Canada's employment equity law, proactive method of hiring that encourages employers to seek individuals or groups that have historically been discriminated against, programs based on statistical comparison of community demographics and may contain goals and timetables to bring representation levels in alignment with available labor force, and a direct way of ensuring diversity. So that's kind of a broad definition to a degree of affirmative action and what affirmative action covers. Some diversity programs is a continuing process meant to create cultural change in the organization, whether it be voluntary or a proactive process of learning that change. You know, whether we're out in the community looking at their demographics, looking at, okay, what is our current demographics today, but what is the outlook of our demographics 10 years from now? Are we being proactive with are we getting out and reaching our community? Are we trying to recruit in the different areas of our community to help pull in that diversity? Through that, we create the inclusive culture and create cultural evolution and change through increased representation and fair employment practices. So through these programs, we're out looking and understanding the different groups that are out there and really understanding their beliefs and their cultures, and to see, you know, how we can make it work and what we need to do within our department to, you know, to help, I won't say reach, but be able to communicate when we do have opportunities with them. Because you just never know where our next new hire could come from, or what their background is, or anything of that nature. So workforce diversity and inclusion provides improved understanding for those you work with and for. This gives you a better overall picture of our job and the city as a whole. Creates a work environment that allows everyone to reach their full potential. That way nobody's held back based upon any type of race or any type of discrimination. provides multiple perspectives on problem solving, and not about creating advantages for some, but it's about removing barriers for all. You know, we can't make exceptions for some in the department because of religion, belief, and things of that nature compared to others. You know, the one that comes to mind is the one that we hired a couple years ago. It was on your shift, wasn't he? The had the shaving beard. Herman. Yeah, great guy.
Yep.
Great guy. But I think as a whole, we put him in a very difficult position.
And I think that was a two-way street, because he put himself.
I'm not disagreeing either. I think it was, because he made the decision to come and apply, and what those conversations were, what the agreements might have been. You know, some decisions he had to make, but at the same time, we could have, you know, looked at things because, you know, it's hard to meet some religious beliefs, to be honest with you, in this line of work. I think he's still at South Fair. I know they made some special circumstances for him, allowing him to be EO and things of that
Maybe
nature.
it'd be a spring now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's still getting to do what he wants to do,
Last I
but
saw him,
do what?
last I saw him, but that was when we took the, high-rise class in spring, that was many years ago.
Okay. Good. It's a great guy. So how are diversity and inclusion beneficial to an organization?
It gives a completely different perspective on things. Prime example, I never really thought about things a certain way, and I know Curtis wasn't necessarily a great asset in some ways to the department, but a conversation or two I had with him did really give me a better perspective on certain things that I'd never seen. You know, before he kind of started shutting down, he would tell me, well, you're seeing things from this way, but I see it this way. And it, you know, gave me a better understanding of subcultures that I just don't understand at all.
Anybody else?
I mean, each person brings their own personality, ideas.
Luggage.
Do what?
Luggage.
Yeah. And we'll use Curtis. I mean, he's not here to defend himself, but we'll use Curtis. I mean, the guy came in and, you know, he had some good ideas, and he put the department out there with different organizations, and I'll use the Gardens of Bel Air, going over there and playing bingo. You know, those were all great because it opened up the doors to people to see the department, what we stood for and what we did. But in his personal aspects of it, it was, and that may be the wrong word, but it was his demise for here because of shutting down and whatever the reasons were that he was having the issues with. You know, he never spoke up about it and
It was
worked on it, trying to get them resolved and how can we make things better. Because I think he would have been a great employee. He would have, but that's just the thing about the diversity and inclusion is you're going to have people with, and as you said, 6 months, they're released, then we see their true colors. You know, are they going to be a fit to this department? Are they going to be an asset to this department? And it takes a 5-year period to terminate those type of people that become, in a sense, cancerous to the department. Gary Baker,
Where are we going with this?
Marshall,
right.
you know, all those guys. I mean, the diversity is there, but it's just how do you get them to participate with the department and make it better?
There's got to be give and take. In other words,
Yeah.
you can't have somebody come in and after 6 months they go, my position's secure, it's my way or the highway.
Yeah.
Right. Without a doubt. And you know, this whole entire subject here is a very, I won't say a touchy subject, but sometimes it's hard to really discuss and really understand and all that as well. Because I mean, you get into times, kind of like with some things that, with the civil justice things that's going on right now, everybody's kind of, at times feel like they have to walk on thin ice because of those types of situations. But if you're consistent across the board, we follow our hiring practices, we follow our guidelines, we follow everything that we do, and that we have in place, there's no need to have any concerns at all. Long-term strategy? Go ahead.
As a chief officer, do you have any tools other than hiring and firing to address diversity or inclusion? So for instance, you have a problem with inclusion with a certain individual or a few individuals. Do you have any tools besides, well, you just don't fit in here, sorry, find another job to address that?
I think you do. I think as a chief officer you do. I mean, obviously the first thing is sitting down and having a conversation with them to really find out what is causing the separation amongst the group or whatever. Whether it be personal or things of that nature. I mean, I think there's events that take place in people's career path that cause them to, they look one way today and then because of a couple of events they change their thought process. From a department standpoint, if somebody's not fitting in, but they're great for the department, they bring a lot to the department, maybe they're not fitting in on, a shift, options are you could move them to another shift. I know the philosophy around here has always been we don't move problem individuals, but maybe that individual's not necessarily the problem, maybe it's just the environment as a whole. There's employee assistant programs, things of that nature that try to help see, and then if it comes to a point, yeah, you may have to figure out the best solution. And that's where our HR department comes in, to be honest with you, because they're great as far as providing that. But I think as a chief officer, you have tools you can find. You should be able to sit back and look at your staff and see who clicks. Because I'll use Castleberry as an example. Castleberry, there's people that will go to Castleberry and tell Castleberry things that I guarantee you Davis and Paul have no idea about. Doug is just that kind of person that maybe you could go out to him and say, hey, don't make it obvious or whatever, but hey, see if you can communicate with them and see what's going on. And maybe they'll open up to a non-officer type individual. So that could be a tool that you can use as well in something like that. Does that kind of answer your question or not really? Yeah, okay. I mean, there's options out there without a doubt. I mean, before you say, maybe it's not going to fit, you got to go. I mean, again, like I said, they may not be the issue, it may be others that could be the issue too. So.
A lot of redirection can take place before you get to a final decision. Absolutely.
And you have the right to your organization, to your people, and to that person to try every available option before you go to the.
Yeah. So long-term strategy to promote productivity, quality, and fairness in the workplace. These programs, remember, voluntary. They assist with overcoming barriers. They help out with the barriers that you might be encountered within the department or as an individual as a whole, and assist with the integration of underutilized segments of the population in fire and EMS service organizations. The struggles that we face, the struggles, in the fire service as a whole, I mean, it's shared by a lot. You have to ask, even right now, with not even taking diversity, you look at our recruitment process. How far out do we reach? How far out do we really go? Do we really limit ourselves as a department because we require firefighter paramedics? And it's not just us struggling, it's everybody struggling, So it's like, what other options could we look at down the road, and having a plan? But the thing is, it's making sure we're looking at everything as a whole, we're getting out to the different groups, and we're making sure we're providing the information as far as who we are and the direction we're going. The programs also focus on improving organizational performance and community acceptance through respecting, valuing, and using people's differences. We learn from each other. Everybody's, brings a different experience to the table. Everybody brings different knowledge to the table, and we learn from the differences that they have. may not necessarily be the most respected individual, may not necessarily be the, common approach that they take, but we can always learn and build from each other. Long-term process to identify and change the organization's culture. The final goal is to create a work environment that respects diversity. The organization must foster a positive culture through managed change as well. Anytime you do any type of change, it's the fire service, nobody likes change. And change is difficult. But I think change is very good and very positive when it's done in the right way and from the right approach. But it's something that we've got to continue to evaluate our department, continue to look at our department from through today's microscope and 5 years down the road. We have to stay with, the research. The positive thing about us, in my opinion, is we've got people that work in different departments. We got, we're connected internally, externally through a variety of the fire service, so you can kind of see what everybody's doing. You get a difference of opinions as far as everybody's approach when they're hiring, the recruitment and all that. So you can kind of learn different things and see what might work and what might not work, or at least if we were to try something, we have resources we can go to inquire and ask questions. So when it comes to these programs, organize for change. You've got to be able to identify your current culture, raise cultural awareness, create an inclusive environment, manage your diversity, and evaluate the program results. So organizing the change, you should establish a diversity team or committee. Should represent the organization's diversity, should include all ranks, job functions in the labor organization. Challenge to create a diversity program within the time frame and must be supported by management. So if you realize you need a change in your department, put together a little team. You have them brainstorm, you have them talk about different avenues, different ways we can go about doing this. But putting together that plan before things are moving forward. Under that, determine the present culture makeup through anonymous surveys. Create a demographic portrait of the organization. Analyze community or service area to determine potential labor market and conduct your organizational survey of cultural attitudes. Rowan kind of did some stuff like this for us. He kind of provided us information through the variety of surveys that he did do. Because I know he did a cultural survey a couple months ago to the department. So he kind of provided some of this workforce to kind of give us an insight of the department. The downside is when it comes to doing surveys, people have to be honest. They can't just say, I'm just going to do it today, I'm just going to give everybody everything 5s. Or not really read it, just kind of go through and answer. We've got to be honest with the with the culture of our department, with the plan that we're doing, and the different surveys as we continue to move forward. We got to do diversity awareness training. I think we used to do that, once every 2 years?
Once every year.
But we haven't done that in a while.
It was a citywide thing we did.
Yeah, it was a citywide thing, and I don't know why that's stopped, changed, or whatever.
Burt was the one that was the biggest one.
Yeah. Yeah, it was like, because we did, diversity one year and the sexual harassment kind of alternating.
Yolanda was pretty good.
Yolanda was good at it too.
I guess we haven't had any reasons for them to put it back on.
Yeah, but you don't necessarily need a reason just for the awareness part of it. Things have changed. Times have changed. And heck, Yolanda, it's been going on 3 years. It seemed like longer than that, but we were having a conversation the other day about different ones.
Lots happened.
Oh, without a doubt. But when it comes to the awareness training, it's unique and sensitive. Not a one-time event, something that you've got to continually train on to make sure everybody is aware of. Should be provided to all personnel, and chief officers must recognize situations involving diversity issues. Before it comes to you, sometimes you should be able to, as a chief officer, recognize that. It stays fresh on your mind. One that, and I know it's not about diversity, but the majority of us had to take cybersecurity training this year. And it's amazing after you take it when you see things that come across, because I think you pointed something out in the email, things you probably would have opened prior to that training, but since it's fresh on your mind, you pick up on things. And that's where the diversity training comes in, whether it be done every year, every 2 years. I don't know if that's something Target Solutions offers. Even if it's the city, something the city's not going to do, it won't do, we can maybe look at doing it internally, but it just keeps you fresh with times, just like going through ACLS class. We do it this year, well, in 3 years, when we do it again, there might be some changes that we were not aware of, but it keeps us fresh, keeps this topic fresh on our mind as well. Some concepts needed for awareness and skills for working in a diverse environment. Ways diversity benefits the organization. Obviously, sometimes you're going to go through behavioral changes needed to create a non-threatening environment. Ways that bias, cultural misconceptions, and stereotypes affect interpersonal relations, and need for respect relations between members. To me, that's the third or the fourth bullet point is a big one. I don't know what Siri is talking to me over here. As far as cultural misconceptions and stereotypes, y'all, if y'all listen to PD, this city stereotypes people all the time. It doesn't matter the race. If there's somebody that doesn't look like they belong in the area, they're always calling law enforcement for a suspicious circumstance. But it's everywhere. Do what? But it's true, and whether they're really suspicious looking or they just don't look like they fit in the area, so they're just going to call. But they're stereotypes. In my opinion, they stereotype individuals. So it happens all the time. It's something that we will and continue to encounter each day on the job.
That was probably the wrong button.
Yeah, it was. There you go. So somebody stole my clock.
I forgot to bring the other one down.
Paul didn't want to break today, y'all. There's no clock in
It's
the
still trying to find.
It's still trying to figure
Is
out
that
the
one
right
still
time.
trying to pick up?
So I decided to bring the smaller one down here and bring the big one upstairs.
Okay.
Because it's a bigger area upstairs. Down here. But I forgot to bring that. And still trying to find out the right time.
All right, so when it comes to managing diversity, create and maintain an environment that allows all employees to develop their potential in line with organization goals. You've got to provide everybody that equal opportunity to be able to progress wherever they want to go in their career. Components of a successful program is providing specific goals and objectives. Not just from Alton and I down, but from you as officers. When you do your expectations, you provide specific goals. Evaluations coming up. It's a good opportunity to provide specific goals and objectives to your crew, to your staff. Make sure that they're easily measurable. Tie to the organization's operating strategy and priority for administration. But also make sure everything's supported by the chief officers. Again, we just got to make sure that we're giving everybody the same opportunity, regardless of who the individual is. Include people from different departments in the development. It definitely encourages buy-in and reduces resistance. When you open it up to a degree in different things, when you open up things and you bring other people in, it brings departments together, it brings the city together, it just brings that connection across the board. Inclusivity. Yeah, in the fire service, I do not know why. But you should feel welcome, safe, secure, free from judgment, comfortable, and feel as you are needed regardless of your age, sex, religion, or race.
They've never been in the fire service.
Do what?
Exactly.
This line's never been in the fire service.
Leading by core values of honesty, integrity, consistency, and commitment. So you gotta know that I can trust my crew and they can trust me. Inclusive membership is necessary for a successful department. Acknowledging and accepting all backgrounds, creeds, and beliefs, and feeling like I'm welcome and accepted. That's what brings inclusivity in the fire service.
But how much of that is on the person that comes in?
I think it's on both sides.
It's a two-way.
Yeah, I think it's on both sides. Paul coming to the department's got to know and understand, the culture of our department, the core values of our department, our mission, everything that we believe in and what we do, and be willing to commit to doing all that. At the same time, you as his officer got to make sure you believe behind it, and that not only are you practicing it and preaching it, but you're also walking it at the same time as well. And that way it shows, because if, you know, during this FTM program, if David's teaching Brandon what's in the book, but then yet David's doing something completely different, it's hard to get that, things brought together. It's hard to get that, even that buy-in alone. But yeah, that's
When
definitely.
you send that message of it's not important, what we have written isn't worth the paper. it's
I'm gonna
written
give you
on.
what you need to pass the test and get past your evaluation process, but then after that, you can do whatever you want, so. Constant program monitoring, obviously periodic interviews and discussions during job performance evaluations. With any program, it doesn't matter if it's a diversity program or whatever, any program, you've gotta have that constant program monitoring. You've gotta have ways to evaluate to see how it's going. And granted, it's not gonna be immediate feedback, immediate data, you know, and react from it, but you've gotta be able to monitor it to kind of see, are you going down in the direction that you wanna go, or if you're off, going off in left field when you should be heading to right field, what's causing y'all to the program to get off? And do you need to regroup and redirect? So ways to determine the program's success is obviously any type of reduction in discrimination claims. You know, reduction in personal conflicts, improve morale in the organization, change in perception of the organization, and increasingly diverse workforce. You know, these are all indicators, all benchmarks to kind of base things off of to show that you're having success in the program. In areas that, you know, if you may not be successful in one, what do you need to do to correct that and make the adjustments necessary to help in the reduction of claims or conflicts? So what are the steps involved in implementing a workplace diversity program?
Create a committee.
Create a committee. And they do everything there.
Study your community demographics.
Create the community, get your data, constantly evaluate what they're actually doing as far as their program and whether or not it's working.
Continuous evaluation, understanding all that. So how would you rate your organization's level of diversity and inclusion? And provide some examples of actions you can take as a chief officer to promote better diversity and inclusion in the organization.
I think we've got a pretty good family here, and we are diverse. I really do. I mean, you can always get better. You know, I don't know as we have the resources to really go out to different communities, because we do look for people that are already educated. So it's hard to go to someone and go, well, if you just go to school for 4 years, you can come work for us. You know.
Well, your diversity needs to match your community also,
Right.
so.
How do you do that?
You gotta
I
know
think
what
just
makes
like
sense.
fire stations being strategically placed throughout a city, county, state, whatever. It's exact. I mean, we do it. You see it. 46's district. You're gonna have a bunch of majority are gonna be Hispanics. You go to a third ward, you want to have majority of the guys being black. In other parts, you're gonna have whites. You know, stations are like that, and they do it for a reason. You're not gonna put a bunch of us in third ward because we're gonna get run over. We don't know the street lingo. We don't know how they behave, how they react, and the same thing. Those people in that district be like, oh yeah, look at these bunch of chumps, you know. I mean, it's how it works. Whether we want to agree with it or not.
Right.
It's
Indian crackers up in this joint.
It's a confirmed segregation is
It's
basically what
exactly
it
what
is.
it is.
yeah, they plug you in where they need
You know,
you.
it's a.
We're not different here.
It's a socially acceptable.
If you look at this chart, you
That's
don't
what
have
I'm
it on
looking for,
there, but
socially acceptable segregation.
this chart, that pie chart, it shows pretty much identical to what we are here in this department.
Yeah.
You know, we got 2 Hispanics, which makes about 9% of the department. We got 1 black, which makes about like 8%, and then everything else is white
Right.
for the most. So that reflects the community to a certain extent.
certain
We have more Asians here
Yeah.
that we don't cater to, but you know, fuck that up.
That was so funny.
You
people.
Those are gonna
walk
be
in
our
and
1%.
say, It's gonna be our 1%. A diverse department would be complete.
Yeah.
Where did we see him? We saw him the other day somewhere, at Houston still.
But we try and
Yeah.
I mean, we literally fit this chart.
Yeah.
You know?
And even if you look at even that bottom paragraph,
Yeah.
males and females, I mean, without a doubt. So. All right. So, item objective number 2 describes the process of appraising the demographics of the community and the organization. So, composition of the community that provides the available workforce equals to the demographics of the organization through age, sex, ethnicity, race, and other statistical categories. This is part of the human resources demographic appraisal. If she felt like we weren't focusing on the right category, I mean, a good example was it the city of Houston that didn't have enough females? I think it was the city of Houston that didn't have enough females, so they teamed up with ACC, and ACC put on an all-female.
Was it
fire
ACC or was it San Jack?
No, it was ACC. Put on an all-female, and ACC is known for that. They'll put on like an all-female academy. Then they've done an all-Hispanic academy class. They've kind of done different things of that nature, whether it be through request or whether it be just trying to help departments overall. But you got to focus on recruitment efforts on each segment of the population. Proactive approach to managing the diversity in the workforce. I mean, you look at that chart and we're pretty much right on, like David was saying, that chart, except the Asian aspect of it. How do we recruit in that aspect? It's hard to find every piece of the puzzle to a degree, but at least if you're going out and you're hitting the academies, you're hitting the different things, speaking to different groups, it will definitely help. So benefits of recruiting a diverse workforce reflects the composition of the community, provides better understanding of various needs, vital connection to all segments of the community, and sends a message that the organization is inclusive and values various groups within the community as well. Provides opportunities for all members of the population to have a part, expands the available number of applicants, helps meet legally mandated hiring goals, and prevents discrimination in hiring practices. So what are 4 sources that a chief officer can use to find demographic data?
Census data.
Census data. What else?
The Department of Labor.
Department of Labor. Department of Health.
Well, nobody else is answering. I just found a slide. State, regional, and local government agencies.
So there's resources out there. It's just knowing where to find them.
Like a slide.
Like a slide. The U.S. Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, prohibits employment discrimination based on individuals' race, color, religion, sex, and national origin, which led to the establishment of the EEOC and affirmative action programs.
So I have a question. What is national origin?
So
Mine would be Italy.
Family comes from.
So say, for example, if there's many different kinds of Hispanics, well, is someone from Haiti black or are they Hispanic? You see what I mean?
Well,
So
and the
that's-
reason I bring that up is a friend of mine defected from South Africa. He's as white as that board. But they wouldn't allow, he is literally an African American.
But he
But
cannot
they
refer to himself
made
as
him
an
put-
African-American.
He can't say that he's African American, he has to say that he's white, non-Hispanic, or,
Really?
but he is literally an African American. But because he's not black, we can't call him black, we have to call him African American. But this guy's white and he's literally an African American because he's from South Africa, born and raised.
National origin.
Because it was like that. That's interesting.
So we confuse national origin
It's
with
racism.
ethnicity.
It's racism at its finest.
Exactly. I mean,
You're right, though, we do.
You know, you
I
can't
wanna be
call
called
them
an
color.
Italian American from now on, guys.
There's that other
Okay.
section.
No longer call me WAP.
That's interesting, though. Programs designed to meet basic legal requirements. Organization introduces the programs to meet these the legal requirements and do not necessarily mean the organization truly reflects the user demographics. Organization has removed formal employment for unprecedented groups. So you got to make sure that all the programs that we implement, obviously are meeting all the legal requirements. We're not just creating something to be creating something to violate. We've got to make sure that these programs are not going to limit individuals, limit community groups, things of that nature. But we've got to make sure that these programs, obviously, and the way we do that here is if we ever had it, we've run everything through legal and run through our HR department as well. Like I said, Lori's great, may not necessarily always be quick in returning on things, but she is very knowledgeable and has resources, and then Alan's pretty good as well. So, chief officers use local records, appraise organization's diversity, and compare with community diversity as well. When it comes to our organization needs, we've got to identify the unrepresented groups and find ways to remove barriers to inclusion. We have to look at our department as a whole to see what issues and concerns we may have and what the barriers may be to help remove that. Are there ways, are there things that we can do to help, reach the full demographic groups in our community to help bring other and new individuals on board? I don't know what the answer to that necessarily is. Because a lot of that is, we can go out and we can recruit all day long, but if they don't apply, then, it doesn't, not say it causes issues or anything like that, but it kind of makes you wonder, are we at the right approach? Is it us or is it the individual as a whole?
But statistically nationwide, the fire department has always had that problem with there's a certain demographic who tends to apply more than the other demographics. And so unless you can really convince some of the other demographics to really apply, it's really hard, even when your program is in place and proper,
Right,
to draw in that diversity.
Did y'all talk about any of that this past week?
Yeah.
At the Chiefs Gathering?
And when you're doing stuff, you need to make sure that you don't focus. A department in Central Texas did a diversity appreciation photo shoot, and they had Hispanics and blacks and Asians and males and females. And the union president went up and filed a grievance with the chief and was like, hey, there's a problem with this. We have a huge problem. This is a diversity photo showing the diversity of this fire department. What's wrong with this picture? And the chief, who was black, was like, shows a good cross section of our department. It's like, you forgot the white people. So it's one of those, just like, because they were white, it's like, oh, well, you don't count because you're not an ethnic minority.
Wow.
And he's like, wow, you know what, you're right. That doesn't show the diversity of our department, because if you were to look at that, like, oh, well, they don't hire white people there.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful when you try to stage stuff to boast your chest and pound your chest and look at us, to be inclusive of everybody and not just
Somebody's
you
gonna look
think.
at it even deeper than what you're looking at it and
Yeah.
find something. Yeah. So creating an inclusive, diverse workforce is an ongoing process. You've got to analyze your data, which will help drive and justify your needs. It'll help justify the needs for professional development. When you look at within the department trying to get people to promote up and, and, you know, not just, you know, any one group, but everybody being equal opportunity to be able to promote, be able to provide the same resources and tools that are needed to prepare. Mentor programs, career planning sessions, and then obviously recruitment programs as well. Advantages of inclusive and diverse organizations: improved employee morale, showcases ethics, uses best talents of each individual regardless of heritage or background, and individuals are given an opportunity to acquire skills and knowledge for advancement. So, you know, these are some advantages that we've talked about before and continue to talk about. But I mean, it will. Once you know, you get to know one another, you get to know the different angles and aspects of the organization, and get to know about the person too. So that way you kind of have an understanding on where they come from and how they think and what, you know, why they think the way they think, and, you know, how they learn. So you kind of, you know, build off of that relationship. Some more advantages: the ability to recruit best available personnel, improve the public image, increase creativity and innovation, improve problem solving, allow some flexibility within the organization, and it also increases opportunity and improved overall capabilities. So how can a chief officer begin to create an inclusive or diverse workforce?
So like we mentioned before, I mean, you have to see what is around you and see what you almost need to take a poll of what you have to see what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
You gotta have an understanding of what you
Sounds
have.
bad,
No, you gotta have an understanding of what you have before you can really determine what you need, like you're saying. So yeah, I mean, you brainstorm, you research. And just like with any other project, you're gonna start by doing your research, because you might see a need out there. Just because, you know, if you see a need out there, others may not, but that doesn't mean you give up on it either. If you see a need, you keep doing that research until you either say, you know what, you're right, we don't need this, or hey, well, this is a bigger issue than what we realized going into. All right, let's take a break. 9 o'clock, let's say about 15 minutes.
You got a call if you want. Or what?
No, we can do 10, I don't care.
I was gonna ask,
Yes.
Break or?
can you really recruit the best personnel available and focus on diversity at the same time? Because it seems like if you're focusing on diversity, you're not focused on who's the best person for the job based on talents and ability. You're more focused on, are they different than who I already have?
Right.
And I think that's
It's
the
hard.
issue that
It's hard.
That's the issue Houston ran into.
It's hard. I mean, yeah, I
You
mean,
know, they're promoting people because they need
Yeah,
that
sure.
diverse group, but were they the right people for the job?
and I think you can, from a hiring perspective, I think you can look at both in a positive way, to where say, yeah, if we're looking, you know, okay, we don't have any Asians in the department. Okay, so we go out, we hit the recruitment and all that stuff. I mean, we can't just hire an Asian just to meet our diversity issue need, if that's what we determine the need here, even though they're a horrible candidate. You know, there's gotta be some give and take on both sides. I mean, if it works out that way, fine, but if not, I mean, they may not have all the qualifications we need that we're looking for either. I think, cause I'm gonna say there's some departments that had Baytown had a minority list at one time, and then two different lists, and they alternated what they hired off of each hiring process, and that was because of the, I think, affirmative action lawsuit back in the days. I don't know if they still have that anymore, but I know that at one time, back 20 plus years ago, I know they had a list and a B list.
A lot of us got caught in it 20 plus years ago, not just with Houston, but with other places. Is we just got caught in the diversity list. You know, I'll tell everyone, whether they believe it or not, I went in 2 different years to apply for HFD. Already qualified, firefighter, finishing up my paramedic, like I was a month from finishing up my paramedic. They looked at me, snapped a Polaroid picture, stapled it to the top of my application, took a big black Sharpie, wrote WM on it, and threw it on the floor in front of me 2 years in a row. White male. What do you do?
Yeah.
I looked at it and I said, this is clearly not going anywhere.
You sue them.
So, well, actually, I got listed in the class action lawsuit for one of those years. The problem is they worked some type of deal where they settled with like 3 people and the rest of us got screwed on that one.
I think
It was funny.
I think your hiring process, I think you can still hire the best qualified candidate even though it may not meet your diversity issue, as long as you can justify it.
As long as you do your best to invite diversity,
Yeah,
you can't help who actually applies or who is actually qualified.
I mean, it's difficult, and we do good just to get applicants here.
Right. And usually they're white male.
Typically, yes, without a doubt.
We can't get diversity through the application process.
Yeah, and I don't know,
But even if we did, then it's like, well.
and I think a lot of that,
focus on diversity at that point.
and I think a lot of that's because of what we require. We will narrow down the true field of what we're wanting to hire, because we have a standard we try to make sure we meet.
Yeah, it's good.
So we can be our own worst enemy to a degree.
So does that go back to, should we be removing barriers to create diversity in our applicant process?
Good.
But then we're.
But
I'd
is
like
that
to-
true barriers?
But then
Yeah,
we're
that's
not
the thing.
qualification
True barriers.
I mean, I'd like to go, I'd like to go talk to SG, because I know when they removed the paramedic requirement and went to firefighter EMTs, their application went from 10 to 50 plus. But I'd like to, I've never really sat down and asked, has that kind of helped them in the diversity things?
That way we can get it on his calendar.
I don't know, I don't know, because, that does bring up a good point, I won't deny it. It's-
Volunteers last night, so it's either Marcia or Kathy.
Yeah, but then do you wanna find the best person for the job, in which case you're gonna have high standards, and that caters to
It's a,
white males.
yeah.
Because I guess of the opportunity or the drive or
The drive,
whatever.
I won't disagree, yeah, it's tough,
November,
it's
December.
tough. Without a doubt.
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah. But
Because, you go hit academies, you go hit classes, and you may
on,
come across, the group that you're looking for, and then again, you may not, it's kind of a hit or miss
he's
in that
probably,
aspect of it, we don't have,
I haven't
I say that, I'm sure there are out there, like Asian
30 minutes total talking
groups
to the
or
kid. But
Hispanic groups that
probably
we can go
more comfortable
speak to and talk to
because
and things like that,
Oh,
but at the same
more
time.
confident
Yeah.
on the EMS side than on the person who's just coming from the creek running EMS.
It's a challenge, for sure.
but it doesn't necessarily mean anything.
Well, yeah. Get what where you're going.
He's done good on what we've had, but there's a lot of work. I'd say maybe like beginning of December or end of November. Put some dates down
For his
for January,
practice.
for end of
Oh, yeah.
January.
Okay.
That way he can start feeling the pressure
Well, it's one of those, it's like, hey,
psychological.
you got to be squared away and ready to go, instead of on day 180, it's on January 14th. This is your day you test for your job. And we literally need to make sure he understands that he's literally testing for his job. Dude, this fucking update changed a lot of stuff on my phone.
It does.
It's the worst feeling.
It changed the way my Google Calendar looks. It added a translate.
Yeah,
But-
it added an app all this stuff.
It moves all your apps around.
Yeah.
Your messenger, like whenever you have a group text, it shows like everyone.
In a certain, I noticed that, yes. jeez. Go find me a sound.
Oh man.
Out of curiosity, do you happen to know what construction trailer that he goes to?
It used to be the one that was behind the, when PD,
And
City
then
Hall was
used
being
for
built.
Okay.
Video.
I was looking at all the stuff that was up here, and I'm going like, some of this is probably current, like Noah is still the same, I'm
Yeah.
sure. And maybe some of that other stuff down there, but I saw that and I'm like,
That's probably
For the
EOC shit.
turkey video.
yeah, and some of it's probably
I
still
mean, it's
current.
pretty
Center point,
self-explanatory.
EOC desk numbers, we just need to make sure that those are right.
Yeah,
Well, that's what I was
creativity
wondering, is if
is
these
the
needed to be updated, cause it clearly does not look like something y'all are using.
I mean, and the thing is, we have.
In my mind,
now
the creativity is actually demonstrating
computer.
You see where I'm going with this? I'm like,
the
these
turkey on
papers
fire.
have been up here forever.
Right, but we need to be able to have a dialogue in between us, make some humor into it,
So,
and then at the end
Just a
show them.
I didn't
It's
know
not
if you
just,
were
hey,
gonna
you're
be,
going video, boom.
still be
That's it,
sending
done.
stuff in for damage reports.
There needs to be innovation. You need to have, we need to conceptualize something and say, hey, this is what we can go with.
I have an idea. I know what you're talking about.
Carl, I didn't like that look.
He's like, shut the fuck up.
I wasn't even.
You went all Limp Biscuit on you.
I don't know how to do it, but I mean, there's a lot of things we have to figure out how to do when making videos. But it almost seems like for this one, it'd be good to have like more of an automatic, just like slideshow thing going with like little elevator music or something, like just information, and then like at the end, the final.
Yeah.
Just as
A
like
PowerPoint slide.
why to not, or why you
We're talking
shouldn't,
about turkey safety this year.
Social distance.
why you
Yes.
shouldn't
Turkey / kitchen
Make
safety.
sure your
deep
turkey has
fry
a
your
mask on.
frozen turkey.
Thaw your turkey
and then
first, yeah.
Odd out completely.
Just, yeah, start off with the video of just like text information, turkeys need to thaw out to room temperature before deep frying. These are ways you can figure out it's at room temperature if it's not at room temperature, if it's still frozen and you put it in hot oil, it's gonna turn into a fireball, and then you show the video.
Oh, we could have showed him the video from last night on the balcony with the frozen chicken. Nate's got some work on the grill to do today.
Oh my goodness.
I think it's detailed the grill day on Tuesday anyway, right?
Yeah.
First
You may want to
Tuesday,
think of
perfect
something
timing.
a little more, if you're just trying to get a video out there that you actually want people to watch,
It doesn't
Maybe-
matter what we do. I don't think many people are gonna watch it anyway.
you may want to pick something other than elevator music, like something really upbeat.
Well, I think it'd be funny to have like this nice.
And
then-
it was a fireball.
It's like the contrast. Because I mean, we could have like
And then you can
really
bust into the
awesome.
roof is on fire.
We could have like really awesome hardcore rock, like
There you
fire
go.
something like the roof is on fire.
You don't-
The
you don't
turkeys,
need
it's
no
just
water,
like
let the
all.
mother-
If you
It's
have
just
a
all on high
routine
the whole way
that's
through.
kind of funny and not willing to make a fool out of themselves, so to speak. A little bit of dialogue in between. You remember when Deacon was doing the clown program? How one of the clowns was always the one that did everything wrong, and oh, type of thing.
Yeah, the slapstick.
That might actually catch people's attention more than.
I agree.
Than just.
Well, and then almost kind of like
Yeah,
what we're talking about here. Demographics of the city. Are there a lot of turkey fryers in Bel Air?
Most of them
Just
probably
takes
have the
one.
latest and greatest oilless fryer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, okay, cool. It may be like, hey, when your turkey
Yeah,
catches
yeah.
on fire in your oven,
That's right. That's why I said turkey/kitchen safety,
Yeah.
because this year's kitchen. So
yeah,
And a lot of people are going to those new oilless fryer type of things. It might be something that you kind of
air fryer.
try to
Yeah.
steer people the other direction.
and because it doesn't matter who you are, you forget the basics. Because last night Nick was staring at a raging inferno in the pit, and when the grease trap fell and started sending everything down to where the gas line is, I was like, hey, why don't we turn the gas off? Let's stop the fuel. And I've been to this fire. Fire keeps going as long as the gas is going.
Don't do it twice.
I think you were at that fire, didn't you?
It happened
And
twice.
Paul was at that fire.
Do what?
You were at the gas fire, weren't you?
Uh-huh.
Y'all had just come back from
We just come back from training.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, we're chasing it around everywhere.
It's on the left. Oh, it's on the right. Oh, it's on
I'll
the
never
left. Oh,
forget
it's on the right.
going, are you sure the utilities are off? Hang on a second.
Utilities are off. We know. They were literally putting it out over here, and they get this one put out, and it catch on fire over here, and push that one out, and this one catch back on. They were literally doing left, right, left, right. It's like a beautiful flame from
It was beautiful.
like
But we chased that thing around in a circle back and forth.
ring around the rosy up there.
Holy cow.
I had that in the garage fire in Tomball. It was like an electrical thing on one side, and then there was like spilled gas and stuff on the other
Oh
end.
my god.
So you're like hitting the electrical, hitting the gas, the electrical sparks back up, hitting the electrical, oh, the gas is back on fire, hitting the gas.
Mm.
Yeah, it took a while to finally cool it off.
Yeah, we didn't have as much of an issue with that on the schoolhouse fire, but that happened there too.
Yeah.
The difference is experience kicked in. It was like, oh, we got it.
I've been here before.
Yeah.
Deja vu.
But
Man,
the schoolhouse
I'll never
fire
forget
was-
that. I was
Definitely
pumping
need to like
that
pick
schoolhouse
up.
fire. And when those
a time
Christmas,
for
when
the
that
three of
smoke
us to
exploded and
collaborate
happened,
if
it
we
was
wanna
like
get it
Christmas
done.
decorations shot over on
We're already
the
gonna
other
do
side
that.
of Engine 30. I was
We've
like,
let a week and a half go by.
it was like something big just happened.
That's why I'm
Yeah, I
thinking.
think
like,
that's-
I'm gonna need to run by Target and get some underwear.
Yeah.
I still think we done.
Hey, we were
the
right
AC
underneath
faces.
it. That's when the ceiling pin came
The
down.
community needs to see our face.
I was like, it's okay.
Not
It's
just-
just a
We need
ceiling
to be a
pin.
staple for
No.
these three guys again.
Oh, she
But
was already
it's just
at
not.
that
To
point.
me, it's literally, somebody can go online and
She's
watch
also
a video of
one the
anybody
same
else.
fire
Like,
thing.
why
She
not?
got Houston Cruise
This
everywhere.
is your fire department, this is your city.
Watching everything.
This is
We
what,
need to do something.
these are the
We need
people
to, I'm
that you
like,
should be
my job
interacting
is to
with.
supervise the
So
inside.
you can't come
We
up
need, I
with
was like,
We
then
have
fine,
to
go help
buy
them
in
pull
because
sheetrock.
we're Bel Air and we're.
So
catering
after the
to
fucking
Bel Air
manager's over, you wanna
residents.
get your hands dirty?
Yeah, you'd be a firefighter.
And then we need to have
She
some
pissed
sort
me
of
off on that one because I'm like,
scientific information,
Right, so we could film here.
Cause they had.
cause
they had to
it's
use
more
a
than
chainsaw.
just,
Yeah.
oh, this is a cool video of a turkey catching on fire, but we need like
Yeah.
information.
It's the whole bridge builder
And
theory.
then
Be the best
Yeah,
bridge builder
make it
in the
in a-
world, but
an entertaining way
Yes,
to
I want.
where people don't feel
Yeah.
like, wow, I just wasted 2 minutes of my life just to watch the last 10 seconds.
Right.
So,
that was a huge.
Yeah.
but yeah, we need to
That was
come
a huge cluster.
together and work on it.
It's a good career change.
Yeah.
We can't just
Uh,
say, you work on it
whatever.
on your 2 days and then John will work
That's
on
an
it on his
example.
2 days, and I'll work on it on my 2 days.
Are you involved in any
It'll
special
it'll
teams
keep getting
besides?
kicked down the road.
Exactly.
You're a Swiftwater. Okay.
Swiftwater.
So hey, Collins and I were talking about a recruitment video.
Yeah.
And it gives us drone practice also.
Mhm.
It's like next time SRT's out training, or the Swiftwater's out training, get some drone footage for a recruitment video. Next time we go to like Harris County for a burn day,
Yeah.
use your camera, or lieutenants have cameras now, get some footage of training, some video footage of training, and then edit it together and make like a 30, 45 second, minute long recruit video. Off of like, hey, we have SRT, we have drone, we have Swiftwater, these are the trainings, you know, or maybe like if we're able to get into the cadaver lab, just get a video of pulling up to the building or walking into the cadaver lab room, and then cut off like, hey, these are the types of trainings that we do. For recruitment video. 15 minutes turned into 17.
Yeah. I like that idea. I think recruitment needs to be
And then we
harder.
go to not just HCC Sandjack, but go to ACC, go to Whackjack, go to.
Yeah. Good luck on that.
Just time. Anybody wanna come like trails over there?
For blood.
No, go pick up Engine 33.
I can go do that. Just gotta be at the Grove by 5:30, so. So we were talking about the blood. I guess whenever Albert gets back in here, it sounds like he's on a conference call or something. The Houston Blood Bank didn't want to work with us.
Nope.
Did you check the Golden Crescent, the Victoria Blood Bank? Because James and I were talking, and it's like Victoria's closer than San Antonio. And I know Victoria, I don't know who, I need to send Tim an email, but I talked to him at the Tim Hunter, one of their EMS chiefs, one of Victoria's EMS chiefs. And he said at the conference, he said he just heard, I think it was Wednesday morning, I was talking to him, that on Tuesday night, they had done their 26th unit of blood.
Victoria?
Yeah.
Wow.
And James, it was in a year. So, I mean, they used the shit out of blood down there.
I wonder if y'all's child fell in that category.
She was talking with James. It's like, yeah,
I mean, that's.
couldn't have hurt. But
Suicide guy could have probably used a little blood.
yeah,
I was gonna ask you another one, I mean, that's like 2 in a week.
Yeah.
I don't know, I know, I don't know who I'll doc talk to, because I know
because
you're
I
talking
know
to
Sandy, by the time you got to plan on almost a day trip
Oh, yeah.
to go get blood, to So whereas Victoria is an hour and a half away instead of 3 hours away.
Yeah, I'll mention that, see, cause we're not,
Hello?
we have to sign anything.
I'll double check with Tim to see who they're using.
Yeah. So you get a point of contact,
Uh,
so you can get a point of contact, if he has a point of contact.
Okay.
then we can-
Wonderful, tomorrow at 1
Yeah.
p.m.
I figured they're using so much.
Okay,
blood, it'd have to
wonderful.
be
Do I
somebody
call
close
or
by.
is he gonna call?
Right. That's crazy, 26.
Yeah. They were initially only
Okay,
using them on
wonderful,
trauma.
thank
It took some relearning, because they're like, oh, blood bleeding out. But then once they got the training and started utilizing it, like, they use a lot more of it.
Alright, we'll go ahead and carry on. Alright, so objective number 3 is explain the chief officer's role in promoting member and management relations. As the chief officer, you're responsible for overseeing relations between the organization's members and the management. You're kind of that middle of the road individual. Out to that.
You are the chief officer.
No, you're the chief officer. We're considered management. And could be city manager and all that as well. You're kind of as a lieutenant, lieutenant is kind of the middle, but as a ship commander and all that, you're considered the chief officer in that department.
So I was thinking officer before was like you and Elton.
It prepares you for that, like in our department. I mean, other departments, it obviously could look a little different, but because our roles and responsibilities are a little laid out differently here, it'll bring you in on that chief officer responsibility and all that. Because as a ship commander, you do a lot of things that, like, assistant chiefs do for the city of Houston. So, I mean, lieutenants do a lot more here than captains probably do in the city of Houston. Captain, unofficial. Not paid.
Captain?
Captain. But yeah, so.
Stop at the top.
At the top.
It was classic. It was classic. Did you hear it on the radio?
No,
Oh, it was classic.
when was it?
The first time our medic unit went to St. Luke's,
2 tours ago.
as soon as they went en route, I got on the radio. 1713 to Medic 41. Go ahead. Make sure you stop at the top. Long pause. Receive. Oh, it was classic. Classic.
How hard was that for you to say on the radio without laughing?
Extremely hard. Make sure you stop at the top.
So is TJ Hackett on B shift, or would he wanna come over to?
Can we make this a chief officer decision?
When it comes to
You
member
think this
relations,
first round draft?
chief officers should strive to create an inclusive atmosphere, making sure that the members feel that they can communicate complaints and propose improvements. I mean, everybody's got a voice, everybody's got to say, with this department and the direction this department goes.
And having a good operating team, it's imperative that in this department, the commanders help the lieutenants out, keeping that management of personalities and make sure that it's like, hey, we need to sit down and talk about this and not, we need to get to the root, we need to get down to the bottom. And it just seems to help with, by managing those, organizational issues, as a chief officer, it doesn't have to go up to the management.
Right.
level.
Right. Keep lines of communication open during planning. Is definitely a program for improving member and management relations. Establishing measurable goals. Consider the barriers to implementation. Provide continued support and involvement. Opportunities and evaluations should be ongoing to take feedback into account for members and management. So these are different things you can do to help improve those programs with those relations. Labor organizations represent personnel in career, industrial, and combination departments. Leadership of fire and emergency service organizations and labor organizations should work jointly to provide a safe work environment. When it comes to budgets, should be prepared with input from the labor organization and grievances dealt with through an established process that aims to result in fair and equitable resolutions. And, I mean, we've got a union, we've got, that opportunity is there if we wanted to really act upon it and utilize the union to have input and say and all that stuff. And, I mean, the door's always open if it ever came to something of that nature where we needed
We
to.
talked about it years ago, and I'm satisfied with the results.
I mean, I know we've talked about collective bargaining, there's been things that, as a department, we've talked about, but there's really never been, our department, never been a need to really, I say, get much involvement from a union side of things. I think it's good to have.
No, Ed and I went and
You don't need to go into that
we
training or
learned,
something on
learned what we felt we needed to learn about and bring it back. And after we talked about it as a whole, Ed and I even agreed, yeah, it's not gonna be worth it here. I mean, history has shown that our city takes care of us. I don't think it's.
PD's got I'd say I don't know how they are now, but I know that at one time they were pretty active and involved with a lot of things, because I know that as a union, they've met with the city manager on pay and things like that as well. To me, the biggest one comes to mind is City of Houston. They don't even have a contract to this day, do they?
I don't think so, no.
I think they're working currently right now without a contract, so. But as chief officer, you should have knowledgeable of the labor management process. You should know and understand that. The laws governing labor management process and the principles of negotiating. Just at least have an understanding of what options are available. Even through disciplinary action, the processes of, if you have a staff member that gets disciplined, what routes they have. If they want to go file a grievance with the city or file a grievance with the union, I mean, they have that right to do that. There's a whole entire process on the union side of things. When it comes to keys to labor management relationship, you're going to have employee involvement and you're going to have participation. The two have to work hand in hand, have to work together in order to have a good relationship across the board. It can't just be one or two or three people that make decisions. You've got to have the involvement of everybody from the employee standpoint and the participation as well. So how are chief officers involved in the member management relations? Angry Birds?
No.
Depends on how your organizational structure is put together. If you have a union and collective bargaining, they're probably some of the main negotiators with all that type of thing. Otherwise, they need to know the process and how, like for example, under this, if we have a contract under such and such, we can only discipline under these type of things, and then it has to go to arbitration or whatever the case may be.
And you've got to know what you have. I mean, from a labor management side of things, being active, attending the meetings, kind of know and understand what you want to achieve in the upcoming process and the upcoming contracts. But really, it starts with you making sure you're knowledgeable in those areas. But then when, you have somebody that may come to you with questions or whatever, if you don't know, just hey, I'll research it and find out. But it really, a lot of it starts with the relations that you have with your staff.
To me, I view him more as a mediator between the two parties.
The two parties.
Whatever's coming down from the top or whatever needs to go up to the top, can't walk into the chief's office and say, well, the guys think this is bullshit and this is ridiculous and that you've lost your mind. You've got to go in there and use the diplomatic approach to doing stuff. And the same thing from top down.
Right.
You can't just say, because chief said so.
So under labor organizations, collective bargaining powers and processes differ. Obviously, the difference on the private side compared to the public sector. Labor organization teams plus management come together and come to an agreement voted on by the membership. It's kind of like the whole contract deal. And I'm not real fluent when it comes to collective bargaining and things like that, but I mean, you have your two different proposals from the management side, from the employee side. They get together, if they can come to an agreement, they put together one contract and it's sent back to the employees for the employees to vote on. But if the two sides can't meet or in the middle or can't agree on something, then you bring in mediation to help close that gap and bring it together. But on the requirements for success during negotiation, specific description of the process, you have to lay it out at the very beginning. You have to lay what you're trying to accomplish at the very beginning of the entire negotiation. And then make sure you have open communication. It can't just be one side speaking the entire time with the other side not having any input or very little input. You've got to have that open communication. You've got to be able to hear both sides and all the different angles that could be brought up and put together. So the purpose of negotiation obviously is the improvement of employees' situations. When it comes to the negotiating process, the employees are going to want what's best for them. You know, what they see is best for them, but also best for the city as well. But sometimes the two can't, you know, you're going to have the differences of opinion, you know. You're going to create a contract between the organization's management and their represented employees, define the responsibilities and obligations of both, and may define conditions of wages, salary, benefits, and working conditions. And again, like I said, I'm not real fluent with it, but this could be a very lengthy process. And then again, it could be a rather short, quick process as well. So both sides have to make certain their messages are received or a misunderstanding can occur. You've got to make sure you hear everybody, make sure everybody understands, you know, what you're trying to accomplish, where you're trying to go, the direction you're trying to get to in that. And make sure that, you know, when the objectives that are set are clearly explained and everybody understands. But if, you know, the employee side wants 5%, but the city's only wanting 2.5%, you know, with stipulations on both sides, you got to make sure everybody understands what those are to help bring you to that middle. So when you have your final draft of the contract or whatever, everybody understands what's being said. To me, like the biggest example I think of is when you get, not to get into politics, but you get like Congress that put together all these stimulus bills, you know, to give back, but there's so much written in them down below that has nothing to do with it, you know, trying to slide things in, yeah. So you gotta make sure everything's clear as can be and everybody really has a good understanding of it. Gotta have that good open communication. So some barriers when it comes to communication are based on attitudes, experiences, values, beliefs, biases, and assumptions. Because of a barrier can prevent the message from being received as intended. And some examples is being defensive or preoccupied and establish expectations. You know, there's times, you know, you can walk in, you know, in a meeting and you see that person that just really gets on your nerves or really just is completely out there. And the minute they open their mouth and start speaking, you automatically shut down and don't listen to what they have to say. You know, so you got to make sure that, you know, in situations like this, not just this, but communication as a whole, they are open. You listen to both sides. You listen to what everybody has to say, and not be. There's nothing wrong with being defensive to a degree, but you've got to. It's your approach, how you go about standing for what you believe to get your point across, but also making sure that you are paying attention and that you're not distracted. So impasses can happen even despite good faith negotiations. I mean, you have to bring in a mediator if the two sides can't come together. Arbitration is another one. I mean, if things don't go well, you can strike. I mean, I'm not saying the city of Houston would strike, but I mean, if they decided to one day, they can all walk out and strike, and you know, if they didn't like what they had. I mean, we've seen strikes before from the teachers unions. They, you know, I think they struck.
Can public safety strike legally?
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so either.
But they can have a picket line and other union.
Correct.
Yes.
But
not allowed to actually.
that city cannot strike for their negotiations. Now,
Bad
there can be a
example.
large portion that comes down with COVID-19.
But you look at like, what was it, software? The teachers
Yeah.
went on strike because of they didn't agree with what the ISD board was putting them through. So they went on or threatened to strike anyway. But I mean, so there's different ways to get your message out, different ways to get your message across, or definitely maybe ways to, you know, if one side's not willing to meet, you know, if you go strike, it helps bring things together, or at least opens the door potentially. I think, you know, HOP is a good one when it came to Prop B, the back and forth that went in.
I mean, when
I
you
think
really,
protest
I think of the
is a lot
ongoing
better
industry
word.
when I think of
It's right.
Well, I mean, what we're allowed to do.
Oh,
We can protest all day long, right? We can organize and protest, but that word there is just a little heavier on.
We can't shut down stations
No, we can.
to
We
strike.
get in trouble here for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, you look at a lot of the.
Probably the automotive industry.
I think we should give a call. Oh, he's got a radio
He's
on.
scanning.
It's probably the best, the best example of strikes.
So how does the negotiation process differ from different types of fire and emergency service organizations? Agreed upon. Do what?
Vastly.
But yeah, I
It all
mean,
depends on how you.
some have it, some don't. I mean, some have, I mean, like us, I just feel like, we have a union that's there and really available as a resource if needed, or if it ever came to the point.
Protection and insurances too.
Do what?
Provides us a lot of protection and insurances too, not just, hey, if you die in the line of duty, there's a lot of other benefits, and it does come down to either a labor or a disciplinary thing. There's some protections there that you have access to.
So incentive programs can help ensure long-term retention of members, may include in compensation packages or labor management agreements, and chief officers should comply with the regulations when evaluating the incentives. Yeah, you can throw incentive programs in with any type of contract, and it doesn't mean, like the incentive program we have here is all around certifications. It doesn't mean we can stop there. If we think of another way that we can incentivize incentivize the staff for retention purposes, I mean, let's look at it. Let's look at it all the way around. Because it's only going to help us not only keep employees, but when it comes to recruitment, it's another avenue that we can say, hey, we've got this type of incentive program outside of certification that can draw individuals to apply. So with incentive programs, obviously it does provide a direct monetary, it provides indirect monetary incentives and then your non-monetary compensation. So again, like I said, there's different incentives, different ways of looking at it, where it could be, obviously we see the money up front, see the money kind of on the backside, and then you're compensated in other ways that doesn't necessarily involve money as a whole. So there's different ones, different ways of doing incentives. Incentive programs, again, awards based on performance levels. You achieve something, again, you could be recognized. For that, distribution of awards should be based on performance and participation, and making sure you're trying to avoid any type of unfair award distribution. Eliminate any type of good old boy system that they're getting it just because, or it was their turn in the line because everybody else on ship got it. So it may be perceived as discriminatory and may lower morale too. So looking at you gotta look at the incentive program other than just the benefit, you gotta look at it as a whole to make sure it's, where you want it to be, what direction you want it to go, and really what you want it to accomplish overall. And even if you have things, incentive programs in place or programs in place, hey, things are working good, but it doesn't mean you can't change them. It doesn't mean you can't change the outlook, how it's done, how it's processed to improve it and make it better. So criteria of successful incentive programs, obviously you want to make sure they're objective and attainable measures of work performance. It's based around your work. It's based around what you do, what you bring to this department, what you bring to the city. Employee and labor involvement in design and implementation. Do it frequent and diverse your rewards. Administration simplicity, keep it simple. And supervisory involvement in program development is imperative as well. Make sure your officers are involved. They understand the program. They understand the pros and cons to it, how it works, to keep things moving on. That way, if people get asked or they recognize the need to nominate somebody, they know when and where and how. Supervisory coverage in the program. I mean, obviously, you've got to have adequate budget for any type of program you have in order for it to carry over from year to year. If the funding is not available or it doesn't get funded, then I mean, that could be a stop in a program, or maybe a way to take a step back to look to see how we can keep this program going and still keep the meaning behind it moving forward, even though the budgetary funds are not available. We've got to make sure you promote the program, as far as making sure everybody stays informed of the program. You know, we use the little brain fart with that program we have with the bars, the ribbons and all that. Combination. Yeah, I think it's a good program. I think we can, just trying to figure out, I know there's been discussion as far as how do we take that program and how do we either do it more often as far as when somebody does something, you know, providing that combination bar earlier versus waiting till the Christmas party. Do we do it, you know, how do we do that a little bit more? Or how do we, because right now we've got a set parameter, but yet there's still so much out there to add to that program that we, for different combination bars, for different things, because what we've discovered is we've got individuals in our department that do things, but yet when you go to try to give them a combination bar for them for their work, what categories it fall under. So it's areas like that. Then you look at this year's Christmas party, whether we have one or not. So we'll discuss that on Thursday. Appropriate monitoring and appeals provisions within and all programs, and their frequent redesign of incentives to maintain interest. You know, with any program, you've got to keep it going. If you get stagnant on a program, you've got to go back and look at it and see what can we do to provide it, what can we do, how do we need to change direction to keep things going and make sure people stay interested in it, not just a program that we can say, hey, we've done this, we have it, but yet not go anywhere with it. So what are 5 criteria of a successful incentive program? I'm waiting for Paul to say a slide. Let me find it, hold on.
Obtainable,
Do what?
obtainable,
Obtainable?
Objective and attainable, let's see, frequent and diverse rewards. Supervisory coverage of the program, adequate budget.
So,
Supervisory involvement in program development. Administrative simplicity.
gotta keep it simple for us. So what is an example of a benefit or incentive provided by your organization that could be revised to be more effective?
So I guess my question is how receptive, and I mean, they're receptive to it, but do they understand the money that they're allotting for the incentives, our council? Do, you know, we're budgeting how much for just incentives?
I don't know how much off the top of my head, but just for incentive.
So when you do that, are you itemizing incentive and what each incentive is? You just,
It's just incentive pay and $10,000.
and what is their questions behind that?
None. I mean, I've never had to answer any questions on it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's never really come up. It's just, you know, like if we try to next year to add like Swiftwater and Honor Guard and SRT, the different, you know, drones and the different expansion of services that we have, we try to add them, then we just have to do, I guess it's not, I think it's item added to the base. Just have to put a description of what we're trying to do, just like we did with Fire and Life Safety Educator. We wanted to add them, but we had to describe how much we were per one, and then how much we were looking at overall it would cost us this year, and then the upcoming years, kind of project that, because I mean, we need to look at, on our incentive program, we need to look at adding, but we also need to look at, you know, you get Fire Officer 1, you make $5. You get Fire Officer 2, well, the way it's currently set up, you still get the same $5 even though you're a Fire Officer. I'm just using that as an example. There's some that are like that where there's really no incentive to go from Fire Officer 1 to Fire Officer 2 because your incentive pay doesn't change. So there's gotta be,
But if you're getting it for the pay, are you getting it for the right
You're getting it well.
If you're going just for the incentive pay. or you
But that's the whole point
Right.
of the incentive program.
Just to get an extra $5.
It's to push people.
That's the whole point of the incentive program, though. I mean, you can't fault the person for that. That's the whole point.
Well, I think that's
It's twofold.
I think it's an added bonus. The pay is an added
That's what I was
bonus. To
thinking.
me, the
The knowledge
Yeah,
and
but
information. that
go
you
and get the
can-
certification to better yourself as an individual to help.
I'm not saying
the
that
department.
it's not.
And the pay to kind of offset that. I mean,
But my point is, do we want to fault somebody for taking advantage of the certification pay simply because they get paid more?
And they're not gonna do anything with it. They're not gonna go anywhere with it.
Where are we going with our fire officer too to have it?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. You're
know,
saying that they
Where are we going to?
they're gonna
to-
take all these
to
courses and
fire
now they're
officer
going
3
for
and
the
4
pay.
for it. It's not required. Fire officer 3 and 4 is not required for a commander's position. If it is, why isn't Dickinson in here?
Not in the moment, not at the moment.
But in the
But
long
it's
run.
not in the
No, it's
description
not.
program.
no, you're right. You're right.
So
There-
why are
we-
we faulting
Myself
Carl
or David or
for
Carl.
taking advantage of it for only an incentive because he knows he's gonna get paid more for it? Yeah, he's not gonna be able to do anything with it
No, but
because it's not in his description. It's not gonna benefit him to become a lieutenant, and it's not gonna benefit him to become a commander because it's not in the incentive program. It's not part of the requirement.
It's not a part of his job
So
description,
I
but
think,
it's part
I
of
think we
development.
need to
though.
leave that out, that perspective out of, well, he's just taking advantage of it because he's gonna get paid more. Well, that's the whole purpose. That's one of the purposes. I shouldn't say whole. That's one of the purposes of the incentive program. This is the same argument Darrell and I had when he and I went round and round. No. This is in the altercation. This is one of the arguments that he and I had, to get the incentive program. And he and I went round and round with him all the time. You're faulting people for taking advantage of an incentive program, but the whole purpose of an incentive program is to help people, give them reasons and incentive to get a higher education. It's a twofold thing. You gotta look at it both ways. You can't fault
The added benefits there, what people do with the knowledge and the certification.
Correct. That's what you fault them on.
They
You know?
might accidentally.
And that's
themselves
probably what
to
you're
the
saying.
point
But
They want to.
Chief and I went round and round.
Yeah, and if you're looking at a department standpoint, you're hoping people are taking the certification for the succession planning and development
Right.
and growth of the department, where money's not the main priority when you're looking at it from a department standpoint. From
Right.
an individual standpoint, it's the added benefit. Taking it, what they do with it, it falls back on them. But we need to look at our, we need to look at our incentive program to see how we can, make it more incentivized so you don't get paid the same for farmers for 1 and farmers for 2. You get $5 and then $7.50 and so forth as you move up. Because I can see, well, why do I need to take farmers for 2? I got farmers for 1, I'm making the same amount with 1 that I would be with 2.
Yeah.
I can see the negative effect.
And if
why
fire
people-
officer 2 is not a requirement for promotion, why else am I gonna take fire officer 2?
But on the flip side, we've put together a career development plan.
We have, correct.
But you don't know what the true requirements are gonna be for the next level of promotion
Right.
until the posting comes out.
Correct.
So, yeah, you can definitely look at different ways, different sides, without a doubt. So objective number 4, describe how training and education goals inform the organizational planning. Should meet requirements of relevant statutes, regulations, codes, and standards. Need to align with an organization's planning functions, such as professional development plans and succession planning, and it can be difficult to balance obligations and limited resources. So training as a whole, it's more than just Davis putting together a training plan for this entire department. Responsibility falls back on the individual to make sure that they are staying abreast of what's going on. They are understanding the statutes, the regulations, the codes, and the standards. They're seeing what the fire service, the direction of the fire service is going, and trying to achieve that training as well. In reality, as a training officer, you can just make sure that you get your 18 hours plus your extra certifications and whatever you need on the EMS side, and meet the ISO and walk away, and that's all he has to worry about doing. But he doesn't do that. We don't do that as a department, and we want to see everybody be able to succeed and have every opportunity possible. succession plan is big. I mean, proactive approach to ensure that today's personnel will have the skills to meet tomorrow's challenges. We have to make sure that we are ready. We have to make sure that, we're ready for the challenge tomorrow. We have to make sure we have personnel in place to step up and be able to take on the next level. There's several on the horizon that could retire any day. But if we're not doing our job as a department, we don't have individuals that, the different levels that are preparing themselves to take the helm, then the department may have to look at going different directions. Some departments, they get into that position to where, because either lack of succession planning or they don't feel like that there are competent individuals in the department, so instead of trying to promote within, they always look to the outside to bring in. But I think if we continue to do what we do through succession planning, continue to do as far as training and preparing ourselves now, not waiting until that promotion opportunity comes out, not waiting until that posting becomes available, and then trying to scramble to get everything, to get what we need, it puts our department in a good position moving forward. Obviously, when it comes to succession planning, you want to match the job requirements with the skills of the position applicants. You've got to look at every role, every responsibility, and match those requirements. We have a good general idea as far as what we'd like to see the applicants have. That's why we have that career development plan that's out there. Now, granted, again, depending upon the level, the higher you go, the more education you're required to have, the more certifications you can have as well and be required to. And again, it could be stipulations that says, hey, we've done in the past, okay, you don't have Prowess 2, but if you get promoted, you've got 1 year to get it. There's departments that say you've got to have it even before you can test. So we've got to think about those avenues and those angles as well. Ensure professional development and continuing education plans complement one another. We've got to make sure we're looking at everything when we put together the training, when we put together the succession planning, the professional development, all of that it does complement, that it's not, it seems like a lot of training at a time. It seems like a lot that we've got to make sure you stay on top of, but you've got to make sure that it flows, that it works together as you continue to progress. Identify talent and provide opportunities for growth. And Alton and I started that. We went through as many of the surveys as possible with those succession planning for our department. We met with, I'd say 75% of the department, the succession planning, trying to find out who was interested in what levels, provide you feedback. But again, there's pros to it. It's just like, evaluation. We provided you feedback, but if we as, administration aren't necessarily following up and say, hey, where are you at with this, or where are you at with those recommendations, just like evaluations, there's some benefit to it, but then again, it lacks benefit if we're not making sure, kind of pushing, I guess you could say, that you're following through with those. Obviously, evaluation is a little different, because if you set goals and objectives, you got to make sure that the staff follows through with that, otherwise it will reflect in the years to come. Constantly develops leaders. You always want to try to make sure we're doing that. No matter where you're at, that you're developing your future. You're developing the direction of the department, making sure that they have the tools that they need, that they are prepared. And by giving those opportunities, it does help maintain morale in the department and also retention as well. I think one of the best things that ever happened was us not getting a full-time training officer position, but having the money put into a training account that really allows us to go train as much as we have the opportunity to train. Because when you think about it, if we'd got the full-time training officer position, our training budget might only be about $20,000. Yes, it's over the years, it's dwindled down from 95,000, I think it was at one point, to now it's down to 58,000, I think it is. So we've taken some cuts in that area, but even with the amount of money that we have for training, we're still able to do a good chunk of development and a good chunk of training overall. So how does a succession planning benefit the organization and its members? Paul. I'm in trouble with Paul's money.
I'm looking.
I'm looking.
I'm looking. It's gonna be like 66-ish, or
Development of future leaders.
Development of future leaders.
Maintain morale and retention.
Maintain morale and retention.
Preparation always, I know this isn't the official answer, but preparation always helps and never hurts.
Right.
Whether it be for the individual or for the organization itself.
So determining your needs through statutes, regulations, codes, and standards. That establishes a minimum level of training. You know, the commission sets our regulations as far as how many hours we gotta have on an annual basis. The state Department of State Health Services sets the hours that we've gotta have, to renew our paramedic. ISO sets hours that we've gotta have in order to maintain, points for the training category in ISO, and so forth. So there's definitely, regulations that are out there that set that minimum level. But just because it sets the minimum level doesn't mean that's all we have to do just to get by. We can go above and beyond that. The authority having jurisdiction establishes the minimum standards personnel must learn. So we have the minimum level of training that we have to have, and then as a department, we determine what else on top of that we will utilize for our training. If it's just the 18 hours of fire and you're good and you're done, or how we go about obtaining those hours. All responders should be trained well above minimum standards. You have your initial training, which leads into your ongoing training. So you've got your new hire FTO program training that you're going to have that you get bombarded for the first 6 months from every which way. You get to a point that you've got different classes that you're required to take moving forward, and then you've got to keep up with the ongoing training. The more certifications you take, the additional training hours you've got to have. And at times it can be overwhelming, it can be light, especially with the new EMS classes that are out there, the new regulations that are out there as well. It's not the days of going to logging in and going straight to the test and not going through the class, at least on the EMS side, are pretty much over with. I don't know if national registries change anything, but you're only allowed, 20% of your classes online? There's a percentage of online classes that you can have.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Of online training where everything else has got to be in person. Maybe it's flip flopped. But yeah, National Register has different requirements in addition to that. So it depends on your certification, what you're trying to achieve, what minimum requirements you've got to meet. Assessing your training needs, initial and ongoing training requirements. Observations made during emergency operations and analysis of an incident or under reports. And we do that. I mean, we look at what we have, we look at what we train, and what we feel like is going right and what's going wrong. You have your individuals that go out to training classes, they go attend different things, and they hear what other departments are doing. They hear different things, and it's like, wow, we can do that here. That'd be awesome. And they come back here and they look at different things, or you get ideas from other departments, and you come back to see how we can incorporate it. Observations made during an emergency operation. If you go make a call and you go make a scene and whatnot, and then you change how you operate, obviously you just don't change it. You've got to train. Prime examples, Blue Card is to me a good one. We've utilized ICS for so long in certain ways, and then a new thing comes out like Blue Card, and you hear other departments operating. It's like, okay, we can incorporate that into ours and how it flows, or how you tweak things, like the cardiac arrest. We've done it a certain way, and then we went to, what's the new approach? 3-minute cycle. What's it?
The PIC crew.
PIC crew, that's it. That's what I'm looking for. PIC crew approach. And it's really still doing a lot of the same things we've always done. It's just a little bit different structural type approach to a cardiac arrest. And then through our review of our reports, we look at the information that's being put in. We look at how treatments are being done, how the protocols are being followed or lack of, and you gather that information and you train on documentation. You train on data input. The one we talked about recently is the lift assist calls. When you pull the query on lift assist calls, some people are putting it as lift assist, some people are putting it as assist to citizen, things like that. So you really have to dive down if you're trying to really achieve a certain goal where all lift assists need to be classified as lift assists. So it's not trying to nitpick reports, it's trying to see how we can get better overall. So educational needs determined often come from professional development plans and succession planning. You know, you put together a plan, you plan for the future, you plan down the road, you plan to see what you need and what direction you want to go, and you go from there. I mean, you determine, okay, if we decided, hey, we need a second medic unit, and this second medic unit is going to do hospital to hospital transfers. Not on the table though. Just gonna say that now, but I'm just saying, you know, and there's gonna be specialized equipment that ambulance is going to carry. All right, well, in 3 years when this unit goes in service, it's gonna carry infusions, it's gonna carry pumps, it's gonna carry, you know, the Striker 4.0, it's gonna carry the, you know, the whatever. Well, we start training now, so when that point gets here, we're trained, we're sufficient, we're ready to rock and roll, that truck goes in service and we're ready to go. Or the new staff that comes on board for that unit is trained a specific way. So that's part of the educational needs as far as determination. When it comes to lack of education among likely candidates for advancement, you've got to identify those individuals. You've got to coach those individuals to establish your goals and develop a plan for completion. You know, I think this is where, you know, the evaluations are vital. When you're sitting down looking at an individual, you know, if you see somebody really not, that would be a good asset to the department, good asset, and it would be great, you know, if they were to promote, because they bring a lot to the table, but yet they lack the interest as far as getting that education that they need. So you've got to be able to identify those individuals and find out what the disconnect is, why they're not wanting to push themselves, what you can do to help them along. Prime example is we've got individuals in the department that are very knowledgeable, bring a lot, but they don't like the online training. They'd rather go to in-class. And we've got several like that. So it's like, well, right now there's no inline classes. So what do you do to help supplement that or help them along to get them the certifications that they need? So you develop a plan for them, you kind of make them accountable, but also, you know, little check and balances. So what methods can be used to assess the training needs of members?
Watch how they work on emergency runs. That's probably the #1 thing is emergency runs and any training classes we already do. See what their skill level is and if they have any user gaps.
Yep. I mean, you can look at, because everybody's going to operate differently, but you can learn how everybody responds and how they react to different things, and knowing, you know, by doing that, it's just like the lieutenant to EO relationship. Then EO on it, knowing everything that the lieutenant likes, what they want, the pressures, the hoses, the angle, the parking, things like that. So you don't even have to think about that. But if the lieutenant sees, well, you know what, this is what I like, this is what I want to make sure everybody knows, hey, there's a training need right there to train with your staff. Or even on the EMS side, you know, with David and Brandon working close together, you know, David's pouring into Brandon, Brandon's learning what David's, but David's also learning from Brandon as far as how he is. If he knows that, and I'm just saying this, I'm not saying this is how Brandon is, but if he knows Brandon's not, his technique on IVs aren't where they need to be, then, you know, hey, we can go do a training session just on that. Or if Brandon's not very vocal when it comes to giving commands, but knows exactly what he's doing, you know, there can be ways to help push him along or suggest things to help trigger that. Those are different training needs as well.
I need 3 less people in the back of this box.
So he was opposite of Peter. Peter needs the ambulance.
That's something they did.
You got a ticket?
You got a ticket?
I'll never forget that. Jason Kendall. You got a ticket to be back here? Oh, I didn't hear, sir. I'm gone. What he told me.
Captain Kendall.
Captain Kendall.
You got to assess your resources also. Resources must be considered, you know, for funds, personnel, and equipment and facilities. When it comes to any type of training, when it comes to the department as a whole, we've got to look at our resources. Even with programs, we've got to make sure we have the resources available to do what we want to accomplish. You know, it might be nice to, when you start a program or do something, to shoot for the moon, but you've got to have different plans behind it that would be like, okay, we really like 10 widgets, But if we can get 3 widgets, we can get the program started, and then we can build off of those 3 to get down the road to where we need to be. When it comes to funds, you're going to work with training division to create the budget that assesses critical needs. Obviously, your critical needs are addressed and funding is available. Education opportunities can be provided in accordance with the organization's priorities and goals. We've got to look at everything here. We've got to look at all the training. There's not a whole lot of training that gets requested that honestly gets denied. If somebody comes across a training request, as long as they can prove that there's benefit to it, then 9 times out of 10, it gets approved, if the funding is available. Again, we do have our, the budget, we have so much, but then there's other ways, if the funding is short, or other ways that we may not have budgeted for because of a large expense, that we can still have funds, through the foundation. When it comes to personnel, you got to determine whether training staff level can accommodate the training needs, whether it be internal sources of assistance or even external sources of assistance. Do we have enough? Do we have enough staffing to do the job that we want to do? If we don't, hey, what are additional resources? We go to Harris County all the time, and we're lucky that they have instructors, but it could come to the point to where if we want to do live fire training, we can use their facility, but we have to provide our own resources. We have to provide our own instructors. So it's nice being able to rely on others, provide them a plan, and still accomplish what we want to accomplish. You got to consider personnel who will undergo the training. Will the training be conducted on or off duty? Will overtime be paid? Is the training electronic or not? So you've got to look at all that. Obviously, if it's mandatory training, then there's going to be overtime paid tied to it, or some type of benefit tied to it. Most of the training that we do, a lot of it we do on duty, but there are classes that y'all know we do take that are off duty as well. When it comes to facilities and equipment, we got to evaluate whether facilities and equipment are sufficient for the projected needs. You look at our drill tower. We've got capabilities down there, but they're limited. They're limited, without a doubt. The one question that comes to my mind is if Public Works moves forward with the plan of buying the city of Houston treatment plant outside the city, what is that going to mean for that facility? Are we losing our drill tower? Will they build us another one over there? I don't know. I'm kind of waiting.
Do it approved.
That's what I'm thinking. Because I've heard that place will become like a big retention pond, which means unless they build us an island for our drill tower, we're probably losing our drill tower. But things haven't progressed very much with that lately, so they've been worried about trees around baseball fields. So I'm kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. But you've got to look at the facilities. You've got to look at the equipment. Prime example, we've talked here about a ropes class. Getting people certified to a different level. Well, the drill tower has some items that we can utilize and would have been sufficient for that class had we been able to move on. Are there needed improvements, and it must be incorporated in the budget? At one time, I know some of us can remember what that drill tower was like. The basement that it had down there, and it was in very poor condition. You'd have to walk, if you did any type of water operations, you have to really walk in with a raincoat, because you'd get wet on the bottom floor from the water coming down the top floor. Had pigeon galore like crazy. It was nasty. But we spent $100,000 one year, got it approved as a capital expenditure, and did renovations on the training tower. Had we probably known now what we know then, $100,000, we could have got a really nice one. But we made it work. Major improvements may be budgeted and paid for in various ways, and may be cost effective to share facilities with neighboring departments. So, like I said, our training tower might be small, but there's some things that we can definitely do. Just got to be creative and we got to coordinate it because, again, we're the location it is in and the equipment that could potentially be stored around it. So what are 3 main categories of resources that must be assessed when determining training needs? Budget, people, buildings. There you go. Slow it down, Paul. Slow it down. All right, objective number 5. You need another break?
I just got home now.
We got about 15 slides left, yeah. We can, if you need a break, just take one, and now we'll push through. So, describing a member assistance program. So member assistance program or MAP services, also known as employee assistance programs, EAPs, may be provided as part of the benefits package and can improve retention and morale. The thing is, I think as an EAP, it is a resource that we either forget about or we don't mention, because when we mention EAP, sometimes the people, it's looked upon as a negative thing. And in reality, it's just a resource, a tool that we have that can provide help. You don't have to make it, obviously you're referring somebody or providing them the information, but at least making it readily available. Some elements may be established by a labor management agreement, and some elements relate only to fire and emergency.
On the EAP, let's say you have an employee that you think needs it. Is there, do you have to write that down as a chief officer somewhere? Like, let's say you offered it 3 times to an individual, nothing, and then a problem occurs because of that specific thing?
You want to document it every time you've recommended.
Where do you document it?
Like if they're getting a corrective action form, that could be part of the goals that they attend an EAP program or consult that. I mean, it could be, obviously any type of corrective action form or PAP, I mean, you can document it somehow, some way, if it's not through corrective action. How you document that outside of a corrective action would probably be a good question for HR to see, where it doesn't look like you just made the stuff up and never told the employee. I mean, if there's an issue where you've got concern of an employee.
Because that's supposed to be private. That's supposed to not.
Yeah.
You can't let that. I have mental health issues, and only HR and you should know that.
Right.
And I'm gonna go seek counseling. But if you've told me 3 times and now I go and kill somebody on duty, well, you knew that for the past 4 years, never did anything about it because it's not in paper.
Right. I mean, you got to document. There's got to be a right way of documenting it. Even to me, unless there's an extra form, even utilizing a PAP form, just to state the concern and the recommendation, because it doesn't. Yeah, granted, the whole retention in the file is dealing with the fact that it's documented that you made that recommendation to that employee.
Maybe in the yearly evaluation might be a.
That's where I've done it for
employees, and that's another document. That's not a bad spot either. Outside of the whole disciplinary time yearly. I mean, it's, I don't know if there's a specific form from HR how you would necessarily, because I mean, I could sit here and say, if I think, not that I would scheme that, but if I think you need an EAP program, I can sit here and say to HR, hey, just know that I've talked to Keegas today and I've recommended this.
Right.
For, but yet you never knew or whatever. I mean, you see what I'm saying? It's got to be known as far as between the individuals.
Saying on the evaluation form, your PAPs can, I know they're not punitive, not marking you off, but under the notes section on the PAP or evaluations, like, hey, this is pertinent information. It's like, hey, Davis was counseled twice this year and recommended EAP 2 times.
And I can tell you, and to me, I would think outside the evaluation of PAP would be if it's nothing, you're going to go higher on a disciplinary. And where a PAP may not be punitive, I can tell you in some disciplinary actions that have progressed here, going back 3-4 years, a copy of the PAP shows a trend.
Yeah.
So would show that documentation that you've made the recommendation. And I want to even say, and I could be wrong, so then you could make a requirement for somebody to go get help through the EAP as far as through the city, but I'm not 100%. If I can make it a requirement because I feel like you've got an issue.
What I was told years ago was that you cannot actually require someone to go, you can only highly recommend. I don't know if that's accurate, but that actually came from the EAP directly
That's
to
just
me.
basically
So that I could not mandate that someone go to EAP. I could only highly recommend that they go to EAP.
Okay. And that's what I'm saying. I
That
don't
may,
know.
That
I
may
mean,
be wrong. It may be different. It's
So
How do you put it in a PAP
do it, because isn't the whole point of a PAP is saying, this is a deficiency, this is how you need to correct it, in the next 6 months it needs to be corrected, or else it will be.
It can be put in there as a suggestion.
Yeah, it is highly recommended that the employee
Yeah,
go
these are the
and not
Utilize
report
the
correction.
EAP
Yeah.
in order to assist them with.
It's how you word it.
To assist.
Such and such.
It's worded, it's how you word it. That's what it is.
Management is all about risk mitigation and liability mitigation. And as long as you're doing the right things and you're trying to help the employee and you're trying to help the organization, it usually will level itself out.
And like I said, if you're not sure, I mean, HR is a great resource, for that, you know, because anytime now, and I know it's changed, but now anytime any PAP or disciplinary action form, before it said administered to anybody here,
Give them a minute to make it to the right. You vote across the street.
They don't, eight shifters upstairs ain't doing anything.
but before any type of form is administered here, it goes to HR now. And they see it, they read it, they approve it, and then once it comes back to me or whoever, then it's administered to the employee. So, to me, it's a good check and balance, because of it, they can see things that we may not think about, or the angles, or how we word it, just a couple words, you know, and it can make a big difference.
So, I mean, and this brings up an interesting point from the Chiefs conference about, on the aspect that David brought up, mental health. I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you were looking at the clock.
I was going to.
You weren't there.
We're gone.
It's, a mental health program is only as good as its confidentiality clause. And if I reach out for mental health assistance, there's departments that the chiefs don't even know who's going for mental health. And so it's like, okay, that's, when you look at that aspect, and I look at Cypher has an extremely aggressive mental health program that I've talked to them about maybe taking on partners for smaller departments. But it's only as good as its confidentiality clause. And there's times where there was one instance where the chief didn't know who was going until he picked him up at the station and took him to the airport to go out of state for counseling for help. So it's like, okay, and if we're writing it on paper and it's going to Lori and Lori has to approve it, that confidentiality clause is out the window. You know, so.
I will inquire on that, because that's, I mean, that brings up, without that good point, I mean.
And then.
And I don't even know.
Building on David's, if he shows up in 6 months or doesn't go to EAP and kills somebody, yet he talked to you about, you know, hey, or you feel, and I have it written down, but there's it's like safe call or something, 1-800 safe call or something like that, where it's a national first responder
I hadn't heard of that.
number, to where it's like, hey, and it's strictly anonymous. In other department, and then a safe call like, hey, I don't know if you have to register, I'm not sure about, but I just need to get a Cypher and have an expand this program. Tell me more about the program.
Yeah.
Just
To where it's like you have an employee that has a problem. And this is what we've recommended to that employee.
not knowing who it is, but just still knowing.
And there were several departments that stood up and said, yes, we've utilized that. And then in this time, if they're having mental health issues, they're probably having family issues, they're probably having financial issues. And now now they're recommending to send this person to California for 30 days. Well, there's flights, there's, and there was one of the departments just like, yeah, I think they ended up paying close to $3,000 for this person to go get assistance. But and they said when he came back, he was like 180 degrees. He was, so I mean, you've invested 10 years into this person in trainings and promotions and incentives and whatever. If $3,000 keeps him or her from killing himself or doing bodily harm to himself or others, that's a small investment. I mean, that's stuff that we have to look at. Or do you just say, hey, that's a sad problem, good luck with that?
That's the biggest
I think, we're talking about this, and I gave you that sheet, is a lot of people having a hard time handling the whole COVID thing and everything that has come with it in trying to deal with what this pandemic has brought. Being stuck at home, not being able to work, not providing for your family, and not to mention for them, but then you have us that are here that are dealing with that on a daily basis. And while you say you don't fear it, inside you know you do, and you take the precautions to protect yourself, but is that going to be enough? And that's always on your mind.
Right.
And taking it home to your family.
So you'll hear more on the employee assistance program within the next month, with our insurance renewal and all that stuff. They proposed a plan last night, to council, so.
It's gonna cover election PTSD now. We actually had a call.
Did y'all really?
Are you kidding me with?
It was, James was telling me it was one of the calls that they made in the middle of the night on the first night. It was an anxiety attack caused by the election.
Oh my Lord.
Oh. Well, speaking of stress, stress is part of the emergency response.
That's definitely a blue bloater.
Yeah, definitely a blue bloater.
There's always high levels of uncertainty,
COPD.
limit control over work environment,
COPD.
and nature of repeated emergency calls. All that together is going to add to the stress that we will encounter within this profession. Critical incident stress, major events exceed normal stress levels and ability of body to cope. Body experiences immediate and long-term debilitating effects.
I talked with Miraz on that call.
Yeah.
We had a fatality accident in Westview. And I said, hey, are you and your crew okay? Do you want any CISM or CSD? He's like, oh, we're all veterans here. And I was like, Miraz, and I told him, I was like, I said, veterans are probably worse than the new guys. Because it's accumulative. It's not one call. And I told him, I was like, quite frankly, I was fine until they turned her over. And then it became a real person. And so I was like, but it's not one call.
Right.
This is the 120th call.
And that could be the call that overflows.
So, no, we're good.
Yeah, you have to, dealing with stress, especially on calls like that, check on your staff, check on each other, and not just after the call, but, the next day or even a couple days later or a week. Just even if it's a simple text message, hey, just want to check on you, see how you're doing. The problem with this is we let our pride and our ego get in the way. That's the problem though. We don't want to admit, hey, it's best for me to sit down and talk to somebody, sit down and bring a group in, a team in, let's all discuss this call. Because we're veterans. We deal with it. We've made one fatality accident, we've made tons of fatality accidents in our 25, 30 years or whatever, but it's the buildup and the add-on. You know, and everybody, like I said, everybody handles and copes with it obviously differently, but it still builds up. Just like pediatrics. You make a pediatric call, you know, for somebody that doesn't have kids, feel one way, but somebody that does have kids, it affects them completely different. So we just gotta look out for one another. We gotta make sure that, you know, you watch, because that could lead to behavioral issues, that could lead to mental breakdowns, PTSD of elections, things of that nature. Alcohol life could increase in the next week. But, so watch out. And like I said, we're a phone call away from having a team come in here and sit down with the shift or with individuals to help with the critical incident stress. You know, we got resources available, like I said, just a phone call away. Behavioral health program must be part of the organization's safety and health. Must contain stress, crisis intervention assistance program. Remember, it's intended to relieve the stress experience immediately after the incident. You know, it's good if, obviously, if we have something major here and the feeling's there, we're going to call them in immediately. We'll call in on-duty personnel, relieve the crew that's there, and that way you don't have to worry about running calls, and you can focus on this, getting yourself in the right state of mind. Should include stress crisis intervention team, but remember, participation in this is not mandatory. We're not going to force you to go, but we want to make it readily available to go if you need to. And even that, you know, if you don't feel comfortable doing it in front of everybody, there's ways that we can do a one-on-one type session.
And I hate to keep bringing the software up, but that's.
Who's over that program? Is it,
I
is
have
it
to
Justin
look
Reed?
at the email. Huh?
Is it Justin Reed?
No.
Okay.
But they brought in for a shift, and I guess they took him to administration station or somewhere, but they had the ability to go one-on-one. They did it one-on-one, and it was, he said it, in the company that they called in's experience in dealing with public safety is it's better to do it one-on-one than in a group environment. Because I don't want to open up in front of Carl or David or Paul, or, you know, it's like, well, no, they're not.
I'm not sure.
They're not having a problem. I'm good.
Right.
You know.
Because I know Houston's got a team. It used to be the Blue Bonnet group, but I don't think they're around anymore. There's other ones that are out there. But the last part is, you know, kind of we talked about with the EAP program. You're gonna have that strict confidentiality must be maintained. You know, go in there, you close the door, you spill your guts, do what you gotta do, say what you gotta say, you know, to get yourself in the right mind. And that conversation is between you and that individual, and then that's it. Psychological effects of work, traumatic events, evoke high levels of stress, and no agency can afford to ignore the suicide crisis. You know, we've got to learn about each other. We've got to watch everybody. We've got to, you know, pick up when you know somebody's not in their right state of mind, or not acting right, or, you know, you ride the ambulance together with a partner on a continuous basis. You know, you learn their moves, you learn their behaviors, and you pick up on things that they say or how they react to different things that might throw a flag. Some things to watch and monitor. I mean, yeah, suicide is something that definitely, you know, the one, when I read this slide, the first thing that came to mind was Katie. I don't remember how many years ago when they had that firefighter commit suicide at the station. Not that any place is a good place to do it, but, you know, at the station, because that really has a big toll on that department and on that facility as a whole. But again, not knowing the details to that, but I mean, it's something we've got to all make sure we focus on. You know, at the same time, if somebody's got a mental issue because, or not in a bad way, because of a call, you know, they're going through a crisis. I watched the EMS class the other day getting caught up on my 8 months of being behind on my CEs on SIDS, and the paramedic crew, you know, do what?
That's a horrible class.
Yeah, it's a horrible class. But you know, the partner really knew his partner and knew that he was really affected by the outcome of that call, even though there was really nothing that the paramedic could have done differently for that call. You know, it just really bothered that paramedic mentally, and the partner kind of kept it between him and his partner for so long, and it got to the point to where he told his partner, "How do you know if you don't go get help, I'm gonna go recommend, to our supervisor that you're unfit for duty and really push for it. Kind of push them along, invite them to do some things away from work, invite them over to watch a game to help kind of take his mind off of it. But even doing that, he noticed, okay, they typically the guy only drinks like 1 or 2 beers. Well, that night, the guy was like shooting them down and drinking the hard liquor and all that on top of it. So he noticed the behavioral change, but knew it was because of that call that really affected his performance. And because he was persistent, I mean, obviously, the way the class goes, they may end up going to get help and making a difference. But don't be afraid to speak up. Don't be afraid to bring things to the attention of your partner or a coworker, just one-on-one. There's times you can be down the bay and bring stuff up, and if they refuse or whatever, or don't, just watch you grabbing and walking on so you don't cause a bigger situation than what needs to be done. But at the same time, look out for one another. Formal peer support program and network industry best practice is available to support members in crisis. Encourages members to talk about issues before they become overwhelmed. Members receive formal training to assist coworkers in coping with stress, and all information should definitely be confidential. Members refer to licensed clinicians and trained individuals dispatched when there's a significant event or mass casualty. It's good to have individuals in our department trained to know and understand it, but in my opinion, if somebody's going through a critical incident within here, I would rather a third party, someone from the outside, come in versus, a member, because to me, that kind of breaks a little bit of confidentiality to a degree, because now it's internal, and all it takes is one comment by one person to say something, and you know how things work. But you're right, we are definitely too small for that. But it doesn't mean that, you can't find training classes, go to training to help you pick up on these behavioral traits, pick up on the different signs of these individuals to help catch it early before it becomes late. So how do behavioral health programs benefit members?
Can save their life.
Save their life. Save the department.
Into their career. Oh, wait.
Depends on if you like it.
But
Probably.
they have to admit to themselves.
Yeah, it's just like with anything. You can bring it to their attention. You can, provide them the resources and tools that they need. But it's the acceptance and the willing to take the step to go get the help that they need.
Is there anything in the city that if this employee starts to become a liability for the department and city, can the city force them to go?
And we were just talking about that a while ago. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, as a department head, if I can require somebody to go, because you deal with the confidentiality of the deal versus just highly recommended. But I'm gonna definitely follow up on that and kind of find out. Because basically the conversation gets sort of how you document things like that. If you make the recommendation to go, but then they don't go, and then later on, years down the road, they do something that triggered on a call or whatever, showing that documentation. So I'm gonna follow up on that, what rights we have.
The other thing is you just said years down the road, if they've not had an issue in between that time, are we dealing now with a whole nother new issue, or is it something from an extended, but you're talking year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years down the road that something happens?
Yeah, the documentation part was to help show a trend.
Right, but if it stops and then 5 years down the road,
Is it new?
is it new?
continuation?
Because it's you got an extended period of time there that not showing anything. Now all of a sudden, boom, it comes back up. Was there treatment in between that period or not?
Right. And, or no treatment, or what type of call did they make that re-triggered that, so definitely. So more on member assistance programs provide members and their families with the tools to cope with working in a high-risk profession. Every call we make can definitely bring on stress and added stress. Participation member may be voluntary or can be mandatory. Again, I will find out on the mandatory piece of it how we would go about, how you document it, how you go about that. So that way, the confidentiality.
I think as a group, you might be able to do it as a mandatory thing. It might be a little easier because now you're dealing with a group of people versus one person.
Yeah. So I'll look into that from a city standpoint. Remember, it's designed to improve productivity, behavior, and the retention of the members in your department and of the team as a whole. Should be used positively, not as a form of punishment, and professional counseling should be provided as well.
The book says it may be mandatory when a disciplinary action is involved.
Okay. So if you, maybe the result of the behavior obviously caused a disciplinary deal, so. But again, I still want to go back and look to see how because that would go back to kind of your comment, Carl, about if you put it in there, it must be completed within 6 months, and then if they don't, type deal. So this can also reduce cost of prolonged medical care and lost time benefits. Definitely can improve morale knowing that you've got options, resources readily available to you and you have access to it without anybody truly knowing that you're going to get help. Maybe part of a labor management agreement and funds budgeted as part of a compensation package. And there's things that we can do as a department outside of what the city provides through our insurance and benefits that if we see would be a benefit to us, like that the software project or whatever. If
Creek.
Site Creek, okay.
Jason Corthel.
So if that program says, hey, you know what, we'll open it up to partners, but it's a $5,000 annual fee. We could budget for that outside of what the city benefits, and then that'd be an added bonus or added benefit for a department that's supposed to be approved. Again, they're required by NFPA 1500 as far as to have some type of program, something available for the members. Our health and safety officer acts as a liaison with the program providers, and the chief officer should communicate these benefits to all personnel. Again, as a chief officer, you've got to make sure you know and understand what benefits are available. Not saying you have to know all the details about it, but you've got to know that it's available and how to access it and how to provide direction or recommendation to your staff. Recommended
Official health and safety officer?
do it after.
Do we have an official health and safety officer?
Which means it's the chief.
Recommended use and consumer time off for personnel who show signs of stress or other emotional problems, and emphasizes use of services is definitely going to stay confidential. I mean, if you have somebody that is having a behavioral issue, mental issues, under a lot of stress because of work-related cause, maybe something personal as well, and honestly, they confided in you, and you make the determination that it's best for them to be off, then we can cross that bridge. I don't need to really know details. You're managing your shifts, how you do that, but just keep in mind that if they're off for an extended period of time, I think it's 48 hours, 2 shifts, we've got to let HR know why the individual's off, but we can do what we need to do to, again, keep the confidential part where it needs to be. So regulations vary greatly depending upon the jurisdiction. Chief officers must understand what the local requirements are and the protections afforded members under the MAP, under the MAP. So again, you got to know what resources you have, how to access them, how to make them available to the employee, or if you don't know how to be able to research it to find out. So, what is the chief officer's role in facilitating a member assistance program?
Gotta have one and provide the information to the people.
You gotta have it, you gotta know it, you gotta understand it, you gotta be able to provide it. So member assistance program appraisal, members assistance services should be periodically reviewed. You want to ensure that they're being used and ensure members feel comfortable participating. Again, we've got to make sure that, that we're reviewing them. I mean, if you don't know what programs we have available, look at them to see what the benefits are, what services they provide. Okay, we've got an employee assistance program. They may be limited as far as the critical incident stress that they are able to provide, but Cypress Creek might have something that's more benefit to the employee. Or maybe there's some programs and ways we can revise what we currently have. Make sure that they're being used, make sure that it's something that, again, it's a resource that you educate your staff on, educate each other on, making sure people understand that it's not pride or ego issue, hey, there's nothing wrong with going to get help. There's nothing wrong with taking care of yourself, because you gotta look out for yourself, you gotta look out for your family, you gotta look out for the department and for each other. You know, and that goes back to making sure that the members feel comfortable participating. You know, let that pride and ego go. So conduct a review with personnel who administer the program. Again, that's the evaluation process to make sure that you're on track with the program and you're trying to get the results achieved by the design of the program, and if not, what you need to do to revamp it or remodify it. Determine satisfaction with services and frequency of use via confidential questionnaires and surveys. Again, those are only good based upon the individuals that are including them that are truthful. If they're just plainly going through the motions, you're not going to get the results that you truly need. Review use records for historical trends to predict the needs and plan your initiatives. So, you know, you got to look at your trends, you got to look at the feedback that you provided to make sure you're, you know, what do you see coming down the pipe? What do you see down the road? You know, the different, what's the fire service doing? What's the behavioral issues that are coming up that researchers and doctors are concerned about? And then start planning those initiatives to be ready for them. We kind of just talked about how should member assistance programs be evaluated, and are there any questions about the content? So, any questions? No, sure. 10:40, still got the day ahead.